So I'd like to call the regular session for May 26th to order. It is 7:35. Megan, would you be kind enough to read the call to meeting order?
Yep. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting, specifically the time, date, and public call and information were included in the meeting that was electronically sent to the Echo Sentinel and posted on the Township website. The agenda and public handouts for this meeting can be viewed online at www.longhillnj.gov. Public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on the meeting agenda. When the mayor opens up public comment portion, if you're using a computer and would like to add a public comment, please raise your hand. To raise your hand, click the participants button on the bar located at the bottom of your screen. Once the bar pops up, scroll to the right and there will be an option to raise hand. If you're dialing in and would like to make a public comment, please press *9 when the mayor opens up public comment.
Thank you, Megan. Would everybody please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
for all.
Okay. Megan, would you please take roll?
Committeeman Dorsey,
Here.
Committeeman Lavender,
Present.
Committeeman Verleza. Vic, you have to unmute yourself. Committeeman Verleza. Deputy Mayor Ray.
Present.
Mayor Paserchia.
Present. So for those following at home, item number 4 on your scorecard, we have a presentation. We're honored and privileged this evening to have Mr. Timothy Sties, the business administrator from the high school, from the regional high school, and Beth Schneiderman. Is it Schneiderman?
Beth Scheiderman, yes.
Scheiderman,
Yes.
I apologize. And Beth Scheiderman, they've been kind enough to come this evening, and I think to update the Township Committee, but more importantly, the public on the regional high school budget. And as always, we appreciate you being here. You come each year, so thank you for taking the time. And Tim, should I just turn the floor to you or to Beth?
Actually, you can return it right to Beth, and she can go over some of the educational stuff that's going on at the high school.
So you're a smart man, you know.
I know
Anyway,
my limitations,
You're
guys.
smart. I won't go anywhere further with that comment. You're just smart. Beth, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having us here. It is nice to be able to work together. And thank you for your support of the high school and the school budget. The district has been making good use of the budget, and the students, as always, continue to make us very proud by being very successful and high achieving in all kinds of areas. The district right now is anticipating 1,879 students next school year. It's slightly down. It's normal cyclical changes in population at the high school. The high school was able to open this year utilizing a hybrid approach under the pandemic, but we have been in session since September, aside from 2 weeks where we had a quarantine period, but the kids have been with us all year. We did a lot of preparation and planning over the summer to reopen. Funds were spent, about $500,000 in cleaning, sanitation, HVAC improvements, technology, PPE, and the funding for those efforts came from state, local, and federal grants. And the high school proved to be one of the safest places to be during the pandemic. So very grateful for all of that work. The high school budget for next year is including educational upgrades for certain rooms, including a state-of-the-art science lab and upgrades to our ceramics classroom for the arts programs. So a variety of programs are planned for improvements for next year. As I mentioned, the students continue to be very successful and make the community very proud. We have an average combined SAT score of 1190 for the class of 2020. 92% of students earned a score of 3 or better on the advanced placement exams. 110 students earned recognition for advanced placement performances, including 29 national advanced placement scholars. And Watchung Hills has 11 national merit finalists for the class of 2021. So a lot to be proud of there. And now I can turn it over to Mr. Timothy Stiles, the School Business Administrator.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. It's always a pleasure to come to your meetings at least once a year, just to kind of give you updates on what's going on and with the budget and whatnot. Beth talked about the stuff that we did this year for during the pandemic, and we were very proud to have offered that. And we look forward to next year having a full school and the kids in full day and all that good stuff. Our budget for next year is just a shade under $50 million, $49,170,000. The overall spending is up 1.5%. Categorical state aid that we get to fund that budget is just shy of $2 million. So you hear me complain about it every time I come to the council, but $50 million budget, we only get $2 million, that's not enough. So we do get an additional $360,000 in debt service aid. And if you remember, and some of you folks remember being on the committee or the council then, we had a referendum, it was $12 million. We get $360,000 a year of debt service state aid. So that's good. And for taxes, the tax impact on the average home is actually, it's actually a decrease of $30 for the average home. So if you break it down by 100,000, it's a decrease of $6.36 per $100,000. There's a plethora of information on our website. If you go to our website and look, actually should be a budget, a little button right on the front web page, talks about our budget, and it gives you all the details of the revenues, the expenditures, all the new items, and the taxes that we just talked about. But again, very, very glad to be here. Look forward to the days where we come to see you in person. But this is a nice alternative. And thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please. Oh, one other thing. Behind me, my screen background is our Learning Commons. We completed this actually during the pandemic. We actually went forward with the project. So it's our old media center library, and it's turned into a more modern Learning Commons. Has a lot of bells and whistles. It has some nice technology involved. I encourage the committee, the council members, the mayor, if you ever want to come and see it, please do. Just let us know and we'll set it up and have you come in. But it's a beautiful space. I'm very proud.
Yeah, that sounds great. I want to give you the good news. Maybe I'm taking a punchline from Ms. Malul later. This is the last virtual meeting for the Township Committee, so you just missed being in person. I guess starting June 9th. I don't know when that Wednesday is. I think it's June 9th. So I want to say on behalf of the committee and, congratulate you and Beth and the team. The results have been outstanding. I guess you're modest. I think I read somewhere that Watchung Hills Regional High School is now ranked in the top, whatever it was in the state. Was it 50? I think I saw it recently, or is that right?
I know we had a Newsweek ranking recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was very impressive. So, and most of all, I want to congratulate the students, because they're the ones that have to put in an awful lot of work. So that's great news. So I think the way we've done it in the past, perhaps we can open it up to the Township Committee to make comments, perhaps some questions for Tim and Beth. Matt, can we start with you?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. What's the approximate size of the incoming freshman class?
So let me take a look. I know it's under 500. tell you in a minute. I know exactly what it is. Yeah, we're starting, I mean, our numbers for, actually for Warren have been really low. So we're projecting 436, so it's pretty low.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, do you want to see if anybody else on the township committee has any other
Absolutely. I
questions?
apologize. I was just getting a power outage update. It appears that Gillette was turned back on, but if there's somebody from Gillette on your phone and you're not back up, please don't get angry at me. I'm just trying to stay as up to date as I could. Why don't we go to Vic? Vic,
I'm here.
so comments, questions for Tim and Beth?
I do not. I'm sorry. My connection is weak, so I'm in and out.
All right, well, we heard you loud and clear there. When your connection is really good, like in other meetings, you don't sound as clear. So maybe we should just keep your power off in the future. All right, Scott?
No questions here. Just would like to thank Tim and Beth for joining us today and their openness to share with us.
Thanks,
Thank
Scott. Brendan?
Thanks, Mayor. I just echo the sentiments. It's wonderful that we've got Watchung Hills here, and I've got 3 of my children are graduates, and so I'm very grateful to them.
Right.
Thank you.
Brendan, is it true they take after their mom? That's why they were good students?
Yep, I can't deny that.
And actually, I would just add one thing if I could. Other than what I said earlier, just congratulations, well done. I think you came in under 2%. I think that's also commendable. And last but not least, Tim, I think you mentioned that the budget receives $2 million in state aid of a $50 million budget.
Yeah, just
All
shy of 2 million.
All right, so I want to put that in context for everyone out there. So that means the regional high school gets about 4% of its funding of its $50 million budget from the state. The rest is funded by residents and businesses, et cetera. To put that, on the, I'll use an exaggerated but a factual example. Certainly, the last I checked, Jersey City, I believe, gets 75%. Now that may have changed recently, but they get 75% of whatever their budget is in state aid. So 25% comes from the residents and the businesses. So towns like Long Hill is not unique. In many ways are challenged, with the task of educating our children, which I think we all agree is the most important responsibility that society has. And I think you guys do a great job. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. It's going to be exciting.
Well, I got to go watch the Knicks, so.
All right, well, off
Sorry,
you go. It's a
Take-
pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you guys. Take care.
You too. All right, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, because we had a last minute change in terms of the adoption of the 21 budget 21-123.
Guy, before you move on to resolution 123, would you like to do the EMS week proclamation?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I have that in front of me. I apologize to the EMS services. It was May 16th to May 22, but we have it now, so I will read it. EMS week proclamation. I will read it in its entirety. Megan doesn't trust me to have printed it out, so it's on the screen. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. Whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. Whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Guy Pacercia, Mayor of Long Hill Township, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 16th to May 22, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week. And, we say it most meetings, we cannot thank our volunteers enough. What you guys do, it goes above and beyond any other town that I know of. So with great love, we declared May 16th to May 22 Emergency Medical Services Week. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment. I think the proclamation was wonderful, but if somebody else wants to jump in, and if not, I'm happy to move on. All right, off we go. So this one, adoption of the 21 budget. Now, our budget was ready some time ago. Because of state is often late, I think we can't, what can't we do, Megan?
The budget has not been reviewed by the state in order to pass it on our end. So we have had the budget uploaded to the system that is required. We've been assigned a reviewer, but they still have not reviewed it. So we cannot pass it until we get the approval from the reviewer. So we had the public session portion where people could voice their opinion on the budget at the last meeting, May 12th. We closed the public hearing portion to have the vote tonight. However, we still don't have the authority to pass the adoption of the 2021 budget, so it will have to be tabled and carried over to the June 9th meeting.
Thank you, Megan. And what we can do is adopt resolution 21-153 as a temporary budget.
It's increasing the temporary budget we have currently because we cannot adopt the
Understood.
budget itself.
And that does not increase the 1.5% budget increase, much like the high school, by the way. I mean, not everything remains the same. It's just that we cannot officially pass or adopt the budget on second reading. Does that sound correct?
Yes, and we need money to operate, so.
Correct.
Yep. All right, so I'm looking for a resolution on 21-123.
So moved.
Second,
Committeeman Dorsey,
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender,
yes.
Committeeman Veleza,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray,
Yes.
Mayor Pacercia.
Yes. So 21-153, that's different?
You just adopted that. You
Okay,
just
that's the
passed
one
that
we adopted.
resolution.
Okay, understood. All right, so item number 6 on your scorecard. Capital Ordinance 474-21, it's the second reading adoption, providing for various improvements in and by the Township of Long Hill in the County of Morris, New Jersey, and appropriating $2,380,700, therefore from various funds of the township. So any comments or questions by the Township Committee members? Hearing none, at this point, I'd like to open up the meeting for public comments or questions. First, I'll ask Megan, did we receive, and this is the last time I have to do this, I guess, did we receive any written questions in regards to ordinance 474-21?
We did not, Mayor.
Thank you, Megan. So at this point, I know we have some attendees here. I'd like to open up the meeting for any comments or questions. Please try to limit your comments or questions to 3 minutes. We have quite a few attendees here. So that's it. Megan, floor is yours.
And this is just in regards to capital ordinance 474-21. I don't see anyone there.
Just
Oh,
give me a
there's
second.
one
I see
person.
somebody.
The phone number I'm going to allow you to talk, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Charles Arenowitz, Millington. I'm sitting here with no power. Last meeting, you complimented the former mayor of Vernon's Township on her efforts. We were informed that we're going to have high winds tonight, and I'm sitting here 2 hours with no power. This is not good performance by Jersey Central. That aside, I'd like to know if this budget approval impacts the 1.5 budget increase, and if it does, I'd like you to reduce that to 0.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question, Chuck?
About the power or about the budget?
No, the power you were clear. What was the second
So
part?
you're good friends with the former mayor of Bernards. You can certainly express a dissatisfaction tonight to her. Based on tonight's capital budget, does this increase or contribute to the 1.5% increase? If it does, I would strongly suggest you bring that 1.5 to 0 based upon the pandemic and what's happened to the residents of Long Hill the past 15 months.
Well, I don't know. Is that a question in there?
Yes, it is.
The
You
answer
wanted
is
me to
no.
ask it? It's up there. It doesn't increase the 1.5.
No,
Who is speaking, please?
it's Nancy Malou.
Okay, because I can't see you and I don't recognize your voice. So we're spending this capital budget from the sale of the sewer plant to do what?
That was already.
This is not,
Yeah,
sorry,
that
ma'am.
was already discussed in detail at a previous meeting. And
Oh, this is open discussion, is it not?
This is in just regards to capital ordinance 474-21. That's the public hearing for
That's
that week.
and I can
That's
answer it, Mayor,
exact.
if you'd like.
Oh, good.
So
Who
this
is
is
that going to
Nancy.
answer?
It's Nancy Malou again. We did not
Okay.
use for this capital ordinance or this budget, we didn't use any of the net proceeds from the sale of the sewer. To fund our capital,
No. The bond savings I'm asking about.
we use money that we would have paid debt service with, yes.
So you are capitalizing on the sewer sale and taking the bond savings and spending this on capital. Is that correct, Miss Administrator?
That's one way of looking at it.
How would you look at it?
I look at it that we are funding capital improvements without incurring any new debt.
But if we didn't fund it and we had the extra monies, what could we do for the taxpayer?
well,
That's not my call.
well, I mean, to answer your
Oh,
question,
you've been taking the ball here.
well, to answer your question, Chuck, the intent by getting us, meaning Long Hill Township, out of the burden of the wastewater system and the debt associated with it was to catch up, and that's what we are doing on capital projects that have been put off for years. For example, we have a 29-year-old ladder truck.
I'm well aware of that.
And all right, well, I'm answering so the public is aware. And engineering road projects such as Cross Hill Road that has been put off for 7 years, 6 years. So I'm very happy and proud that we are going to address a lot of needs throughout the town that we previously were not able to do. So that's
What I'm asking for is, can we somehow reduce the 1.5 increase to taxpayers of Long Hill and chew away, if you will, at this bond savings that we're spending on capital so that the taxpayer is not hit with a 1.5% increase? That's the whole purpose of my call. No one has answered that yet.
Mayor, I'd like to call on Randy Barr because he could explain it from a financial perspective of what that would do to future budgets. Is that okay?
okay. Randy, thank you for being here this evening. I didn't see you.
I got it.
I can't see him either.
Okay. Randy, hopefully you're there.
I am here.
So-
Although I just had to check a tree that came down, so I didn't hear the question.
So I was hoping that you would, Mr. Aronovitz is asking why we're not using some of the debt, the money that we're saving from not paying debt service that we're using to fund capital improvements. He's asking why we're not using that to lower the taxes.
Well, that would be a more philosophical question for the Township Committee. However, what I would recommend as a CFO for the past 35 years is that you never use one-time revenues to offset taxes, because you then run into a problem of chasing the money. So if you use the one-time revenues and that source dries up, then you're in for a much larger tax increase when you don't have that money to fall upon. It's probably a better philosophy to use it for the also one-time revenues, such as various capital projects and so forth.
Thank you, Randy. So Chuck, that's I think the answer. Perhaps not the answer you wanted, but that is the answer.
Yeah, you're correct. It's not the
Okay.
answer.
All right. Megan, any other resident who would like to speak? I see someone.
Yes, Pamela Ogens, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you could state your name and your address for the record, and please keep it to just the capital ordinance 474-21.
I'm going to stray from that for just a second. It's Pamela Ogens, 36, the Crescent here in Millington. And Mr. Mayor, the last time I checked, about 1,500 households in Long Hill Township were without power. I'm one of them. I'm running off of a gas generator, which is loud. And I'm surprised that you're holding this meeting when so many residents who may want to participate but don't have generators or other means to participate are being denied that opportunity.
Mayor, if I could make a comment. There is a few different ways that you are able to participate in tonight's meeting. Anybody that has a cell phone can dial in and just use the password. So, you know, if anybody has a cell phone, they don't necessarily need a standby generator in order to participate in tonight's meeting.
Well, I totally understand that. I have a phone. I have very limited battery capacity. So if I were to try to participate by a phone, I can almost guarantee you my battery would be gone in rather short order.
Mayor, if I could interject, I'm sorry, Ms. Ogens, but if I could just interject for a moment. It was important for us to get this meeting done today because of the temporary budget that you just heard us vote on. Because we haven't been able to pass a budget, we do need money to operate. So it was important to get that done.
Well, if that's the only pressing issue, then maybe we should suspend the rest.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment because I'm looking at the list of attendees on this. This is the most attended meeting that we've had in the last 2 months.
I hear your point. If you're getting good attendance and people are finding a way, and by all means proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Ogins. Megan, any other comments? I don't see any hands. Let's give everyone a second.
I'd like to make a point, going back to Chuck's comment. The consumer price index over the last year, April 20 to April 21, went up 4.2%. And so, the net effect with the 1.5% increase, that is effectively a break on taxes.
Thank you, Scott. I think sometimes we haven't had inflation for such a long time. I think that's the highest number in 15 years. So it typically doesn't come up in budget discussions, but it certainly is an increase. So thank you for pointing that out. In the interim, I don't see any other hands. If no one else, I'd like to close the public portion of this and look for a motion for capital ordinance 474-21.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey,
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender,
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza. Committeeman Verleza,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray,
Yes.
Mayor Paserchia.
Yes. So item number 7, consent agenda resolutions. Would anybody like to pull a resolution to discuss or say they need to abstain?
I need to abstain from Megan, the
148 and 149.
148 and 149, Mayor.
Thank you, Brendan. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'd like a motion to pass resolution numbers 21-137 through 21-152 with the 2 abstentions of 148, 149 by Deputy Mayor Ray.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey,
Yes.
Committeeman Lavender,
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ray.
Yes, with the
Mayor-
abstentions noted.
Perfect. And Mayor Paserchia.
Yes. So now let's just jump right into liaison reports. I picked on the upper right earlier, so perhaps we can go to Vic. I can't see you. Just in case we have to go back to you and because you couldn't speak now.
Can you see me now?
We can, and we can hear you too.
That's very exciting. Hold on. Am I first up on the liaison report?
You are batter up. You're a leadoff hitter tonight.
Right. The police liaison report is as follows. Motor vehicle stops year to date, 635. Community policing and proactive residential radar posts, 731. Arrest incidents year to date is at 12. And actual subjects, adult and juvenile arrested, is also at incidents. The Long Hill Township Police Department assisted the Morris County Acting Prosecutor's Office in an investigation reflected in a May 25th, 2021 press release. A member of our Detective Bureau and also a member of the County Narcotics Task Force participated in an investigation/operation that yielded the seizure of 1 kilogram of fentanyl. Morris County Acting Prosecutor Robert Carroll stated that this is an important seizure since tragically, we know that numerous overdoses each year are the result of individuals ingesting fentanyl. That has been mixed with other illegal narcotics, including heroin. Nice job by everybody involved. On Thursday, May 20th, 2021, Long Hill Township police officers were called upon for assistance in an early morning hours. I'm sorry, this is tough to read. I'm reading it off my phone. I can hardly see it. So I'm going to give that a try again. On Thursday, May 20th, 2021, Long Hill Township police officers were called upon for assistance in early morning hours in Sterling. Shortly upon arrival, they were met with a suspect that brandished an AR-15 rifle and pointed the weapon in the direction of our officers. The officers immediately took cover and verbally engaged the subject in an effort to de-escalate the critical incident. Ultimately, the rifle was secured and the suspect was taken into custody without incident. The subject being held at Morris County Correctional Facility on a myriad of charges to include aggravated assault, various unlawful weapons charges, and possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose. Due to the nature of the investigation and pending court case, pardon me, no further details can be provided at this time, and there are no outstanding threats to the public. All additional weapons were removed from the residence utilizing an authorized search warrant. A ceremony to recognize the heroic actions of the police officers involved will follow. A special thank you to all our partners that arrived on the scene. Well done, Long Hill Police Department. Community policing. The Long Hill Police Department engaged in a bike rodeo last weekend, and it was well received. Officer Jeff Scala organized the bike rodeo, and it was assisted by Officer Dolores Langenbach. Special requests. In anticipation of Memorial Day, we say thank you to all of our current and past military veterans who have served and continue to serve this country. We appreciate your service, courage, and commitment, protecting us by keeping this country safe and free. We want to thank and recognize two of our Marines, Officer Makarski and Lieutenant Mark Keski of the Long Hill Township Police Department for the continued service to our community. Pardon me. That is my second week effort on the police liaison report. I promise to do a better job on the next one, but that concludes my report.
Well, Vic, I think you did a great job, to be honest with you, and thank you for reminding everybody about Memorial Day. And not that we need any sad reminders of what that day honors. Behind me, you can see the sign for the Matthew G. Cantor Park. And that is, I think, well, I'll leave it at that. God bless you, Matthew. All right, so let's move on to Scott.
Okay, recreation. So what's going on in recreation? So summer camps are being prepared right now. Registration is open through June 1st. So you have until next Monday to sign your kids up for summer rec. Virtual babysitting. We've been talking about this for a couple of months. Grades 6 through 12. We have one more session there on June 5th, Saturday, June 5th. There's still some spots available in that class. Next, we talked about Memorial Day. The parade is on Monday, May 31st. There's been letters sent out to many of our local groups. This can all be viewed on the recreation page on the town website. There will be parade marchers as well as emergency vehicles and other vehicles with approval. Go to our website or contact Lisa Scanlon with any additional questions. Sterling Lake, registrations are being accepted right now on Community Pass. Early bird pricing runs through next Monday, May 31st. So sign up and save money if you register by May 31st. The lake opens up for swimming, however, on May 29th. So hopefully it'll be a nice weekend. Badges can be picked up when you get to the lake. And the open house that's normally held on Memorial Day afternoon at the lake, unfortunately, is postponed because of the circumstances. Next, the summer concert series has been announced. More information on that as well. There's on the website, there's currently 7 bands scheduled, but we are accepting sponsorships for more concerts. So please contact the rec department for that as well. And that concludes the rec liaison report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Brendan.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. And Matt.
First, thank you for the DPW. If you look around Main Street and take a walk around Town Hall or Cantor Park, all the veterans banners are up. So take a stroll and go see all the great soldiers that are from town or live in town. Actually, the DPW is out now. I think they already cleared a tree that was down on Mountain Avenue. So they've been doing a lot tonight. I'm guessing tomorrow they'll be doing a lot of cleanup from the wind and the storm. And that's it. Oh, and on the fire, great job to both fire departments. There was a actual fire the other day over by Keel Block Farms. It was their, I think Brendan was there. I think one of their piles of wood caught on fire and it burned for a while and they actually contained it. It didn't spread. And aside from losing some products, everybody was safe up at Keel Block Farm. A nice job. And you don't think this happens anywhere but on television from the 50s or in a Tea Party world. They actually had a call a couple weeks ago to rescue a cat out of a tree on High Street, which they successfully did. So yes, that does happen. So thanks everybody that responded to that very important call. Oh, last thing, mulch. If you want mulch, it's still available. Please call or email the DPW. I believe the deliveries are $100 and change. And if you wanted to bring your own car down there, a truck or buckets, fill up as much as you want. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Vic, for your eloquent comments regarding Memorial Day. So I don't think I will add to that. We have the administrator's report. Nancy is going to update us on the possible rumored return to Town Hall.
I am, but first I'd like to mention that at the last meeting, you approved an agreement to enter into a shared service arrangement with Harding to provide municipal court services. I'm happy to let you know that we found out it was approved by the Morris County Municipal Division Manager, but today we found that it was also approved by the assignment judge, which was the last step. So we're good to go, and we will enter, or we'll begin that on January 1st of next year. As Committeeman Lavender mentioned, the open house at Sterling Lake is postponed, but a new date will be announced at some point in the near future. I am very excited to announce that at National Night Out this year, a Navy parachute team will be performing a parachute jump demonstration. And as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, this is in honor of Matthew Cantor. There are some people who will be jumping who actually served with Matt in Afghanistan. It will be held in conjunction with the night's festivities, and they'll be jumping onto the field. They will stick around to speak with residents. They told me they make it interactive. So if there are little kids there, they help them, fold up the parachutes, and they talk to residents. The Cantor family has been invited, and I believe they will be there. And I think it'll be a great addition to the night. And as you mentioned, because of the lifting of almost all the restrictions by the governor, we will be reopening Town Hall on June 7th to the public, and no masks will be required unless I hear otherwise from you tonight. But the way that the governor lifted the restriction, he said that people who are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, do not have to wear masks, and it is recommended that people who've not been vaccinated wear masks. But I feel that we don't have the ability to question people as they come into town hall, whether they've been vaccinated or not. So I would prefer to just leave it up to people. It's their personal accountability, whether they choose to wear a mask or not. I have lifted it for the employees and would like to lift it for the public coming in. There will no longer be temperature checks necessary. Obviously, this is all contingent upon state guidance, staying the way that it is. And because June 4th, indoor gathering and capacity limits are also lifted, we feel it is safe to go back into town hall for our first live meeting in over a year on June 9th, as you mentioned. Again, unless I hear otherwise from you, residents who come to the meeting will not have to wear masks. So I don't know if you want to talk about that or if you're good with that.
Sure, anybody on the committee?
No, I think this is great news, and I'm happy that we're moving in this direction at last. So I look forward to our next meeting in town hall. And the other thing, Nancy, right? The residents don't need to wear masks or social distance, right?
All right. Also, that's the other thing is, yes, that the social distancing restriction is also off. So that's a big part of why we can go back, and land use boards can go back as well, because social distancing will no longer limit the number of people who can come into the courtroom. Thank you for mentioning that.
So Deputy Mayor Ray, when you said that you were looking forward to it, my mind was racing ahead. I thought you were about to say, I'm looking forward to getting a haircut.
Oh, you can get haircuts now?
All right.
So I had one more thing.
Okay.
And so assuming you're all okay with that, then there will be no more masks required. So I just wanted to mention that on the 9th, we'll be back on live LHTV, and we have upgraded our system. So if anybody has LHTV, they have noticed a new bulletin board, which has been expanded. That was launched a couple of weeks ago. We have new programming for residents that is shown. We have a big library that we can access for no additional charge from the service that we have. So our new employee, Tiffany, has scheduled a lot of things during the day. And one of the upcoming things that's very exciting is lots of interviews of local residents airing in a segment that she calls Get to Know Your Neighbor. And our Mayor Pasurcia will be the first guest shown. So we're looking forward to that. And we're hoping that residents will enjoy our new TV upgrade. That's all I have.
Thank you, Nancy. I guess I should have asked the Township Committee, is everyone okay with the way Administrator Malul described the opening of Town Hall, not just for residents visiting Town Hall, but also for the Township Committee meetings going forward, no masks, etc.
Yep.
Yes, very happy.
Yep, and that's great. Okay, so now we have a couple of discussion items. One is landscaping equipment. And I think I had asked you, Megan, to put this on. I've seen some general social media comments about when does it begin, when does it end? Almost all of the comments were inaccurate. So I wanted to at least put it out there as to what the accurate hours are. And Jack, I guess that's you. And perhaps, maybe not for this evening, to discuss if we would like to look at amending those hours. I'm not suggesting that, but just because now with the proliferation of, what are those things, leaf blowers and et cetera, et cetera. So Jack, could you at least tell us what the hours are?
I can if I unmute. The current ordinance prohibits the operating or permitting the operation of any tools or equipment used in construction, drilling, earth moving, excavating, or demolition work is prohibited between the hours of 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. the following morning.
Okay, said another way, 7 a.m. in the morning till 8 p.m. is when they are operational
Exactly.
per ordinance. So again, I don't think we're going to resolve anything this evening. I know we have to clean up the language to make it clear that it includes landscaping and leaf blowers and stuff like that, because it might have been written so long ago. But that's essentially what
Was.
we're talking about. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I don't know if that's too early in the morning or too late in the evening. And it's Monday through Friday, Jack?
No, it's 7 days a week.
7 days a week, okay. So at least file that away, maybe put it on the, well, since it's on as a discussion item, any committee member or Deputy Mayor Ray, did you want to comment this evening or carry a full-on discussion to a future meeting? You're on mute, Brendan.
Thanks, Mayor. No, I mean, I think I've always been okay with those hours. They seem to work for the, both the landscapers and people who are working, as well as the residents who don't, who haven't heard they've been unduly disturbed.
Yeah, and it was sporadic comments, and I don't even think there was much complaining other than to ask what the times were. And honestly, perhaps it was a little bit more frustrating since we've been on lockdown for 15 months. That may in fact go away. And I think it's just important that the public is aware of what the hours are. And so, all right, Matt.
I don't even want to go down the summit path, so I'm stopping the conversation right here.
Scott, are we prohibiting Scott and Vic from speaking? Or no?
No.
If
we're
they
fine
agree
with
with me, no.
I agree with Matt.
Jack, you're a legal expert. Was that an example of online bullying by Mr. Dorn?
It was.
It was not. It was not.
It was not. Okay. Vic?
Vic's afraid to speak.
Now, this may be.
My internet connection was going in and out. Could you please ask that question again?
The question is, did anyone on the committee want to, carry this for a fuller discussion for the hours, or is everybody fine with the current hours and just the recommendation to Jack to maybe clean up the language a touch, but the hours would remain the same?
I'm fine with that.
All right, and I agree. So Megan, there's no need to carry that discussion item. We can just cross it off. Now the Scott.
Just to be clear, we would like to add landscaping equipment to that.
Well, let me ask you, is there a reason why it's silent on including it?
It goes back to at least 1997. It probably wasn't an issue then.
Right. So it seems to me that it should be clearer by adding it. I don't think we're changing anything. It's de facto is the way it is. We're just clarifying that it includes landscaping and leaf blowers for that matter. Right? Am I wrong in saying that?
I would just add generic landscaping equipment.
Okay.
Power equipment.
Everyone okay? Matt's got a scowl on his face, so I think the answer is yeah, we're all okay.
Okay. What happens for the next meeting? It'll be very simple.
And like late breaking, I'm told that JCP&L will be here within the hour, and that was texted to me at 8:18. So, and they anticipate sometime over the next couple of hours the restoration of most of the folks in town. I wouldn't take that to the bank, but that's the update I received. Scout permit fees. Scout permit fees. And is there, Nancy, could you give us the context of this?
Yes, I'm asking you, as you know, we have a lot of Eagle Scout and Gold Award projects here in town, which is a great thing, but there's often projects that require permits. And you did it recently. I believe you waived a permit fee. So I was hoping that rather than have the scouts come and ask you every time, that you would create a general policy that we could waive the permit application fee for any scout projects.
Matt, you want to lead us off on that?
I have no problem with that. They always produce good work and they save a town a ton of money by doing the projects they do. So I think it's a great idea, and they streamline it and give the either Boy Scout or Girl Scout, they don't have to come here and pitch their idea to us, and they can just move forward with it. They have enough
Well,
hurdles.
we still ask them to come here to talk to you about it. But when they have to go get permits, just waive the fee. They still get the permit, but they waive the $50 or $100 fee.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fine.
Brandon?
Absolutely no problem with it.
You know, I like the way this meeting is evolving. I'm just going to let Matt speak first, and the rest of you are
We just get in line.
fall in line. Vic? I think that was a yes.
Yes.
All right, Scott. My goodness.
Yes.
There you go. And I'm a emphatic yes. So that's great. And thank you
Thank
to
you.
all the Eagle Scouts and the gold award.
Gold award.
Gold award. That's what I got. The gold award. And the reason why you come to township committee meetings isn't so much that we're checking up on you. We trust you and thank you for what you do. But we think it's important for the public to know what wonderful projects you guys and gals are working on. So so thank you for that. Okay, so next item on the agenda is personnel. It may not have appeared on the original agendas that the public had seen, but this is regarding the emergency management coordinator position. And Jack, if I could just ask you to explain, you know, we have personnel decisions or discussions all the time. They can appear in exec or take place in exec, or they can take place in public. Could you explain how this process works?
Sure, Mayor. The Open Public Meetings Act in general requires that all township committee discussions be in public. There are 9 listed exceptions to that requirement. One of the exceptions is personnel. And that section of the Open Public Meetings Act says that the meeting shall be in closed session unless all the individual employees whose rights could be adversely affected request in writing that the matter be discussed at a public meeting. In this case, the one employee who is affected has requested in writing that this discussion be held in public. Therefore, the Township Committee has no choice but to do it in public rather than in executive session.
Thank you very much, Jack. And this situation goes back over a month, and for various reasons, it has not taken place until this evening. And to put it in context, the emergency management coordinator position per state statute, I guess it is, Jack, has to be appointed to a 3-year term.
That's correct.
By the end of May 31st or by June 1st, however it's.
Well, it's a 3-year term. In this case, the term expires on May 31.
On May 31. Okay. So it could be any day, but in our case, it happens to be May 31.
That's correct.
Thank you. All right. So the Township Committee, per Jack's, the Township Council, this position was discussed in executive session going back, I guess, maybe 5-6 weeks. And if I could ask Committeeman Lavender to give us some context of what the committee is thinking of doing.
Sure. So, you know, the committee talked through, you know, recent history with regard to, you know, the COVID crisis. And, you know, one of the gaps that we recognized was that we need to do a better job with the vulnerable residents in the community. And, you know, we kind of took a look at that role and felt that that was one that it would behoove us to fill. And when we looked at, you know, the kind of person, the kind of personality, the skill set that was required for that, We, Brendan, you have to quit setting off that fire alarm. You have to wait a second. Now my dogs are gonna bark. I go through this every day, Brendan. Why do you do this to me? Okay, I'll continue.
Scott, will they stop barking when the alarm goes off, or they'll continue?
They do. My wife just yelled at them to shut up.
No, I think that was meant for you.
They're well trained. Well, yeah. So anyway, one of the gaps that we felt that we had was, doing a better job of getting our arms around how to help vulnerable residents. And I think we saw this over the last year with the COVID crisis. A lot of noise in the background there. In terms of getting folks vaccinated or checking up on folks that were housebound, et cetera. Took a look at, the kind of person in-house already. And so, that's a job that we wanted to fill. And we felt that we could optimize, what we were doing from an emergency management perspective with something less than a full-time or something less than the number of hours that we were dealing with right now. So, that was sort of the thinking that went in, and it was kind of a collaborative discussion that led to the decision that we came to. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Scott. And I guess to put it in perspective, the conversation revolved around still providing the resources to OEM that are necessary to perform the functions of OEM. And I think it's important to recognize the OEM position in Long Hill and almost every other town. It was never meant to be a 25-hour-a-week position. There were various things added to that. And to your point, a lot of those items kind of evolved ad hoc and have been handled in an exemplary way as best we could, but without having a real structure in place, whether it was for COVID-19 or.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, it was having the structure in place, having the definition around it. And also too, it's a trend that is being adopted by communities across the country. So, this is something more and more communities realize that they need to, think through and do a better job on. And in some respects, I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve with this. And, given the fact that, we're on the cusp of having to make a decision, we don't have that luxury to put it off any longer.
Thank you very much, Scott. And so to just put a little more context on it, this is not reducing the resources that are dedicated to OEM and to this new role that we have in mind, whether it's, and I'll let Brendan speak to that. We want to highlight it and in many ways focus on something that is more of a day-to-day need, such as outreach for our seniors and how to help them and coordinate, services that they not only need, but deserve. And Long Hill Township, I agree with you, I think is a bit of a trailblazer in this regard. Larger towns, of course, have, health and human services departments. Smaller towns like Long Hill don't. But I agree with you. I think to some degree, this is a trend in place. It could evolve into a shared service with another town, and the position could very well turn into a full-time position. So I think what we're talking about is moving 25 hours from OEM, which we always knew was not really the structure, and taking those 25 hours, putting it into this untitled role, we'll just say vulnerable population for now, and then still dedicating the resources to OEM. that are necessary to complete that job. Now, Brendan, if I could, we've outlined some functions. Could you outline them for the public? You're on mute, buddy.
I don't know how that happened. It was not the usual mute button I use, but yeah, I certainly could do that, Mayor. I'm just pulling up the document that we had put together, but it essentially we started to look at Scott, you might have it up in front of you right now. I'm having difficulty accessing it, but I think what we, as we talked about earlier on, during over the last year to 14 months, we've realized that within this town, within Long Hill Township, there are vulnerable, not just one vulnerable population, but actually many. And as a governing body, as a town, we really need to be prepared to provide services to all those populations. And we can immediately think about the seniors and their particular needs. We can think about a group of residents where we've already tried to help there with the organisation that we called A Way Out, where we tried to help not just the individuals who are suffering from drug addiction, but also their families during the time of their need. And so, this is something that's been long in the making. And so, and with this particular position that we're talking about, we want to, I'll just read out what we have thought about so far. We want to effectively, the individual who take up this role would effectively communicate information about programs and services through community outreach, engagement and presentations. And so it would be a proactive educational role. They would provide advocacy services in a comprehensive and timely manner, including information and referral to services and programs. They would facilitate thorough assessment and benefits, screenings, home visits and wellness checks, and other duties as needed. They would gather relevant information and assist in the application processes. They would prepare, maintain, and update and compile operational and statistical data, records, and reports that would help us make this our services better. And they would respond to individual emergency crises as needed. And so this is right now what we've really talked about as a working document. We can add to these services as needed, and as we start to think about them more clearly. But as I said, the last 14 months has really shown us that we need to have a dedicated position to this. And really, whenever we think about the OEM position, the individual who's taking care of these types of duties during an actual OEM type of crisis really can't do both. And so I think the way that I look at it, and I think we look at it, is that we're really beefing up this particular role, and we're taking the OEM back to what other towns have it, where it's a kind of as needed role. It's activated as needed when there is an actual emergency. So I hope I covered it for you, Mayor.
Yep. Thank you, Brendan. I don't know, Scott, if you had the document as well. Is there something you wanted to add? One thing I would add, Scott, so rather than just put it directly to you, the way I see this or envision this evolving is that there may be financial needs for some of the programs you referenced. Seniors, if the person that's running this area comes to us and says, we being Long Hill Township, $10,000 to run this program for something that has fallen through the cracks over the years, that's something that I would love for this committee to consider and perhaps apply if it's warranted.
Well, absolutely. Grant applications and awards. The other thing that's very important is representing the township at the Morris County Community Development Agency. Because there's a lot of help that we can get from the outside if we focus in on this in particular. And I just want to stress something that Brendan said, which is really important. In the case of a real emergency, it could be a number of things. It could be a snow emergency, some kind of a hurricane like we've had over the past years. Really it's a lot to bite off on for one person to manage police, fire, DPW, and then on the other hand, check up on the vulnerable residents, right? And Brendan's right. That part of it, which is coordinating with those first responder agencies, it's really not a full-time thing because we're not always in emergency mode here 365 days a year. But we do need to have consistent vigilance over the vulnerable members of our community. So, we can get the best of both worlds on this by staffing this position, yet also having, a much more reduced time focused emergency management position that doesn't have to be full time. And in fact, that's the way a lot of communities are doing it. We're really getting in step with how other towns are doing it.
And one thing, Mayor, I know that with restructuring the OEM function the way we have, I mean, one of the functions of OEM, after the emergency is also collating data and making the reports and making sure that we get reimbursement from FEMA and various other agencies. And I think that's something that we're aware of that part of the OEM function, and I think we're also prepared to staff that as needed with this new way that we're looking at it, where we would have the individual who's activated on an as needed basis. I think there we've certainly looked at it where we would round out that individual's team if needed in order to make sure that we obtained the full reimbursements from the various agencies that from where they're available.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ray. I don't know, Matt or Vic, if you wanted to make any comments. You certainly are not necessary. So with that, I think I'd like to open up to, in this case, it sounds silly for me to say it this way, but the employee in question, which is why we're having this meeting in public. So Shane Daly, I don't know if you have access. I do see you. No, I don't know if I see you. And to be fair, Shane, I know has been working with JCP&L this evening on the outages, and she was very kind enough to be, along with Carol Bianchi from JCP&L, giving me updates. So Shane, I don't know, are you there?
Shane, if you're on the call, if you could raise your hand, if you're a phone number, I don't see your name. If you are a phone number and would like to speak, if you could just raise your hand so we could promote you. It looks like a Stephen Daly is raising their hand. I'm going to allow them to talk. It might be Shane.
Sure. Hey, Stephen, if it's you, and hi, Shane, if it's you.
If you could just unmute
They're
yourself.
muted, yeah.
Good evening. Can you hear me now, Megan and all?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I am at the squad. We got a couple phones and a couple computers going. So Mayor, thanks for the opportunity to get on the call. And just, for a
Absolutely.
little, yeah, thank you. And just for a little clarification, the reason I brought it forward was because I just wanted, and thanks for the opportunity for discussion. I know it is a little out of the ordinary, but we are working with some extraordinary timeframes, and we just had an opportunity to sit down and talk about some of your ideas surrounding how we can address our access functional needs folks, and I would say also through an outstanding response, in my opinion, with COVID. We know that we have community members and folks like myself who have the passion and the energy and the wherewithal to be able to organize during something like a pandemic and really do a pretty good job to harness resources for people and protect them, particularly in the case of something that's significant. So what we know is that we would like to expand those services. And what I've heard from a couple of you in a separate meeting was that, and it was very complimentary. And I do thank you, Brendan and Guy, for some of the ways you expressed how you felt that I should be a person that you would like to consider for that appointment or position. And I thank you for that. However, the context of some of our conversations, and I know this is off after the fact, but I think that you may recall, I even said Friday evening to you that I was just shocked, while I was so pleased to hear that the council would like to work on this for the community. I was just so shocked that you would consider even reducing the existing time that we have for the OEM department right now. So for the benefit of the folks that are listening, the OEM department is staffed in part by a 24-hour-a-week employee, which is myself. I've had the benefit of serving as your coordinator since 2015. This is actually my 5th year. And for emergency management, I started 15 years ago with Ken Fulliger, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done. The ability that we've had and the proven response that we've had, which has been highly successful as an OEM management team in the community, has brought us to where we are today. And if we were to reduce available resources and manpower and take a coordinator who would be only activated as Brendan characterized as real emergencies, would be leaving us potentially exposed to do a much lesser job, actually. So a couple things I just wanted to highlight for you. The emergency management department is directly in control and authority for the CERT team, which we all enjoy the benefit of that group of volunteers. Last year alone, your CERT team logged 1,500 hours, and we don't write them all down. So we are organized and activated under the emergency management coordinator. In addition to that, we have volunteer staff, Lisa Scanlon, Al Gallo, Larry Fass, and Linda Olmstead, who have all worked with me for no less than 3 years, and many are 6. Linda is 15. So the only thing I've ever heard from you guys for 5 years was very favorable. Many, many times in the middle of the storms, my 2018 appointment from you, Mayor, you were celebrating our response in Quinn. And the reason that we were able to do so well in those situations was that day-to-day operation. And I have to say, believe me, it takes a lot more than 25 hours. I'm very willing to be a volunteer, and I volunteer well beyond those hours on a weekly basis. And of course, when we're in storm mode, that is my job, 24/7 coverage. And I think that I'm happy to do that and call the resources from the community volunteers for that as well. So forgive me if I hear my voice breaking up a little at this point, because I'm a little emotional about the thought that while I was so excited to hear that you're going to potentially take on a problem, put some more resources at it, and you feel like we've kind of scratched the surface last year, I'm really glad to hear you acknowledging that, but we should not do it at the expense of the OEM department. And I completely disagree with any concept of reducing that staff. and the projects that we work on. One other example I would just like to leave for everyone in the room is that last year alone, there are 2 FEMA projects that are underway currently. There's Storm Isaias, and now we have just gotten, effective April 28th, a presidential declaration for the winter storm Orleana, which was in late January. That snowstorm event will bring in for the municipality approximately $120,000 gross, and we get a 75% share of that as a FEMA reimbursement. Our other project, which Linda and I have been working on since August of last year, which is Storm Isaias, is netting approximately $110,000. So combined, we're coming in a little less than $250,000 for the municipality. This is not the first time we have done these projects. The net result of those is how we can restore budgets and monies that have been spent out of the public tax dollar to then be able to bring to bear more equipment and resources and reinforce our cash expenditures for those areas that we've had to make in the process of the storm response. That doesn't happen when, like today, when that storm comes barreling through at 6 o'clock. It happens with everyday mitigation work, preparation work, documentation. I could just go on all night. I need to be a little briefer, and I really appreciate that you gave me a little bit of time on the phone.
Shane, don't feel rushed. The floor is yours. You can speak as long as you need.
I don't feel rushed. I think honestly, Mayor, I think as I expressed to you Friday at the closure of our meeting that I was so pleased to hear about some of the vision of the committee. I would love to have a little time more to speak with the committee. I would like to share and partner with you guys on developing the position for whoever it may be. But tonight should really be about the reappointment. And when you reappoint me as the coordinator, you're also speaking to the people who support this engine that runs all the time for the town. And the couple people that I talked to today, we were also discouraged to even consider the possibility that not only will we not see our department expand, but that you would consider reducing it. And I think ultimately the community will suffer for it. It was very disheartening, I have to say. This is what I would propose. So my last recommendation for the committee as your coordinator would be to say, if you are determined and if you have some doubt about reappointing me personally, I would like you to consider reappointing me. And let's figure out a way, Jack, with you and the state and through whatever means to, if you need to reevaluate this in 6 months, say with the January, with the reorg or something, I think we can figure that out. But I can't just turn off the lights either. And I would like to see through some of these projects that I have underway for the department. I can't possibly scale back to going to a program that Ken Fulliger started to establish in the 90s. Long Hill Township has always had an exemplary emergency management program. It's a very robust program, and I can't imagine doing it any differently. So I just hope that instead we could establish with firm footing a transitional period. And if you are determined to change the structure of the emergency management department, then let's figure it out together. And let's do it with an appropriate time frame, as well as the new position. I did have the benefit of seeing the job description, and I was very excited about it. I have a lot of relationships with the local agencies. I partnered recently for the past year with Rhea Patel and others at Public Health to work with our home vaccination program, to work with our homebound residents, Lounsbury, ongoing, the senior center. And I would just hate to see that lost, and some of that will be lost. I really believe that. I don't think we should take something from one position, from one department to what? To go to something new. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I know I've spoken to a couple of you guys about it, and Mayor, I can only ask you to please consider an appointment and without interruption for the benefit of all of us in the community, and let's work together as a team. You know, I would be very enthusiastic with energy and enthusiasm towards serving as your coordinator for the next 3-year term. And I can't thank you enough for the time. And I do apologize that we had to bring it out front, but I'm glad for the discussion. And I'm here for any questions also. I know I sent you guys some information today, and otherwise, that's all I have to say for tonight. And thanks, everybody.
Hey, Shane, thank you. And thank you for being here this evening. Thank you. And by the way, all the groups that you mentioned, CERT, the MRC, the first aid squad, the town doesn't realize everything that goes into all of that. So I've said it many times, and certainly to the police department, which I know are not volunteers. What you guys and gals do is above and beyond anything I see in any other town.
Well, and Mayor, also emergency management, there's so much of it that's behind the scenes. And as I've kind of said to you and Matt in the last week as my mayor and OEM liaison, is that, with COVID in particular, we did not have our normal structured meetings and opportunities to interface as we have done, I think, very positively for so many years together as a working group. So COVID kind of, I think, was somewhat of a disruption for some of us, but we really put our heads down. We had the task force. We did an outstanding job. We have reconciled most of the hours for COVID. The CERT team alone, their performance as a volunteer group was extraordinary. They have 900 plus hours on top of us. 700 hours for their regular routine response work, 1,500 hours. So I can't say enough how I woefully regret that we have not had more in-person meetings. I think there's been some kind of a disruption or breakdown in the opportunity for some groups, such as my department, to keep you apprised of some of our activities. And I would just have wished I had more of an opportunity and time to address some of your questions or concerns. I frankly was so unprepared for it and shocked. I think, assumed that this would be an appointment and a celebration, even perhaps, of our outstanding work last years of late. So,
thank you, Shane. And honestly, I think it is a celebration in the sense of this is an expansion of what currently exists, not a reduction.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, I mean, in no way is this meant to reflect negatively on anybody involved, from you to all the other groups that we talked about. In fact, I think the committee is recognizing that we have some extremely skilled people, both those who are paid and those who are not. So hopefully, and you're my dear friend, as you know, hopefully, whether you agree with the thinking or not, it's important to me that you recognize that we, I think, view it as a promotion of something that is a daily need. That's not to detract from the necessities of OEM. Absolutely, one of the great things about what OEM does, both you and the volunteers that work with you, is to get every dime that the township is eligible for after an emergency. And I know I speak on for the others as well. We will absolutely make sure that the resources that are necessary to continue what has been started by Ken Fulger and the group CERT that he founded, I believe, and the work you've worked with him for many years. So we're just trying to make sure that that we accentuate all of the work that has been done, and to take advantage of the skills that the people involved have, and that's certainly at the top of that list is you. So I hear what you're saying, and I know you're disappointed and all, but I think the committee looks at this as, frankly, a promotion for the outstanding job that has been done over the last 15 months. And of course, the previous years, as you reference. So it's not, well, I don't want to go too far, but I think at least I'd like you and all the volunteers to understand that what we're trying to do is to take advantage of the remarkable skills and dedication, frankly, that you have. So I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that. It would have been nice to have a little bit more time. As you know, we tried to get together last month sometime, and unfortunately, the state has guidelines, perhaps not written all that well, but we have to adhere to them. So, and in either case, Shane, I just want you to understand that we think the world of you and the job that you have done, and we're trying to have the town avail itself of the wonderful skills and empathy that you bring to the table. This is in no way meant to reflect negatively. So
Mayor,
anyway,
Mayor, if you know, not to keep this discussion ongoing, but if I could just say that this is perhaps a bold experiment that we are embarking on here, because we have seen the need in the community. We have witnessed firsthand what needs to be done, and quite frankly, under the system that we had in place, as good as it wasn't enough to fulfill the goals that we have set for it in this new position. And as a result of that, everything that Shane just mentioned, we're pretty much keeping, and we're even keeping the same band. We're keeping the band together. We're no CERT or MRC, no group will be downgraded as a result of this. But what we have done is we've taken most of what the hours that were devoted here, we're taking them, and they were devoted to social programs. We're taking those social programs and we're making a full position out of that, and we are saying we are funding it, and we are looking for we're looking to the person who takes that position to come to us with new ideas on how we can best serve the community. Now, when it comes to emergencies, the emergency function is still going to be there. It's going to be handled just like it's handled in every other or in many other towns, and that is the individual will be activated when necessary, and they will work with already the outstanding police and fire and squad that we have, who I've witnessed firsthand work incredibly well together in this town. And so they will work with them. We will then backfill that individual if needed with a team, so that we don't lose out on any of the reimbursements that we are currently eligible for. So this is we've never shied away from doing what we think is right, and that's been a hallmark of this community, of this committee and of this community, and that's exactly what we're doing tonight. We could have stuck with this with the same old situation or structure that we had. It was working well, but it wasn't working up to the high standards that we want for this community, and that's what we're doing tonight. And we hope that everyone who's been involved will actually still be involved and actually be even more enthusiastic and impassioned by that essentially is what we're doing tonight.
Thank you, Brendan. If I could, Megan, I know I see a couple of hands that are up, and give others the time to raise their hand as well, but if you could try to do it in the order of which they raised their hand, in fairness.
Yes, so there's a Laura Pesci that I'm going to allow to talk. You could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hi, you want to speak first?
Yeah, it's hi. It's
You got
Mike and
both
Laura
of us.
Pesci from 3 Aaron Drive in Millington. And Laura's going to speak because she's worked closely with Shane over a number of years. I will just I think the action, first of all, it's not even clear to me exactly what the Township Committee has done, because frankly, I think you've walked around the issue, and I've heard a lot of process HR speak here. I think you want to be explicit. It sounds to me like what you're saying is Shane will cease to be an employee of this township. And if I'm right on that, I think it's a despicable move by you.
So Michael, if I could answer that question, no, she would absolutely be a township employee with the same number of hours, with the same compensation as she currently receives.
What does that mean, Guy? What's the role?
Well, that's a work in progress in the sense of vulnerable population. It probably can use a better title.
Mayor, I mean, I think what we've, just to be absolutely clear here, we have developed a job description for vulnerable, we're calling it right now, a vulnerable populations advocate, something that we've identified is needed in this town. So we have actually developed that, and we have shared it with a number of individuals, including Shane, and we've actually talked about it. And so this is again, I'll call it for what I think it is. It's a bold experiment, and we believe that this is the right thing to do.
Well, does Shane have this new job or not?
If she wants it, it is hers to accept it, turn down.
Has it been offered to her?
But I don't think we should discuss that tonight because that wasn't the subject of the Rice notice.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a legal way, there's a process. But I think we've identified a very challenging role, and we know exactly the person we would like to fill that challenge. In my mind, because of the shared services and the bold experiment, however you want to phrase it, I know it sounds like HR speak. I envision this role evolving into a full-time role relatively quickly because, and I've already spoken to a couple of other towns that might be interested in combining it as a shared service role, and who knows why? Maybe they don't have a Shane. We do.
I'm going to defer to Laura. She knows a lot more about this than me.
Well, I'm Laura, 3 Aaron Drive, Millington. Still sitting in the dark on my phone, so hopefully the phone doesn't die in the process.
I hope
But
not.
I'm manager of the Medical Reserve Corps, and I'm a member of CERT as well. I've spent a lot of time watching Shane, and to be honest with you, she's done a phenomenal job as OEM coordinator, and I too find it despicable that you would even consider not replacing her.
Sorry,
No,
Laura, you broke up. I'm sorry. If you could repeat the last part.
I find it despicable that after the incredible job Shane has done, especially with grant writing, as you could see by the money that will come in, that you would even consider not reappointing her as OEM director, whatever you want to call it. She is the most dedicated.
People that had their hands raised were Laura Pesci, Jim Wolf, Pat Oggins, and Guy Rochtel.
And they still have their, except for Laura.
Do me a favor. Try to accept. I don't know who was next up. Was it
Pam?
No, I
Pam
think it
was
was
next.
Jim. I think it was Jim, wasn't it?
Okay.
It was Jim.
All right.
So try to accept Jim if you could.
Okay, there you go. He's just got to unmute himself.
All right. Can the committee hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure. This is fun. Anyway, I'm a little confused just on the new position and what was being described. And I guess the easiest question or first question is, you were singing Shane's praises pretty highly. Does she have a choice to stay as the OEM director or take this new outreach program, or is it you either take this outreach program or you're gone? I guess is the first question. And then the second is, who do you have in mind for the OEM director? What do they bring to the table, beyond what Shane is able to do?
So, Jim, those were excellent questions. And perhaps I can, and hopefully not overstep what the legal process allows me to. The restructuring of the position of OEM director would have a greatly reduced number of hours. So that's important to understand. Whereas the other position with probably not the best title of it yet, would have 25 hours. And the current OEM position has 25, but it would be reduced. I don't know, maybe, I don't know the answer to that. And to answer your second question, no, we do not know, but we will work as quickly as we can to fill that position.
But does Shane have the choice?
Of
Or
take-
is it take this new position or that's it?
Jack, I don't know how clear I could be here.
Well, it's a mayoral appointment. You know, I would ask at the conclusion of the discussion that you ask for a consensus of the township committee as to whether or not they want you to make an appointment of anyone as OEM director this evening or OEM coordinator this evening.
Okay, and it will in fact be a township committee decision regardless of what the poorly written statute says.
Right, it's actually our ordinance that makes it a mayoral appointment, but still, it's been
okay.
general. It's been the general practice in town for the mayor to get the consensus of the township committee.
Okay. Jim, I know that was probably not a direct answer to a direct question, but we have to work within what the process allows.
I mean, I kind of go back to the original comment that there's a lot of HR speak. It doesn't sound like an official offering has been made to Shane for the new position. Something's got to be done by the 31st, I believe what you said, and that she doesn't have a choice, that she may not have the job. She's not going to be appointed as OEM. It sounds like something else is in mind for that. And, you know, again, I'm a member of certain others that were kind of left out in the wind with no director, no leadership, no direction. I'm just kind of bewildered, I guess is really it. I'm not sure what you guys are doing. Maybe you can't say, but I'm more confused at this point.
Well, to put it in perspective, and it varies by town, Jim, and here's the challenge that we have. Towns like, you know, just because I happen to know them very closely, Forum Park, they don't pay the OEM position at all. Chatham Township, for example, didn't pay that position at all up until a couple of years ago when the former mayor was not reelected, and then he assumed those responsibilities for OEM, which I believe Chatham Township, is that public information, Jack? I can divulge it, what they pay?
Yes,
I know
absolutely. It's public.
All right, so Chatham Township, for example, pays the OEM position $6,000 a year. So the challenge here is to take full advantage of Shane's abilities and dedication and pay her for it. And the restructuring doesn't allow us to pay her for the hours that she currently works. Now, most volunteers in town don't, of course, if any, right? By definition, volunteer means you don't get paid for it. And you're one of them. So thank you, Jim. What we're trying to do is to structure it in such a way that this is definitely HR speak. We optimize the skills and the financial resources we dedicate to both roles. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I mean, I'll let the next person go. I guess my biggest concern is it sounds like Shane does not have a choice after 15 years of dedication, and that's my main concern. And I'll leave it at that and let you get on to the next person.
Thank you, Jim.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, before you go, can Jack just clarify something? Because I think Shane actually put it out there about appointing her for a 6-month like interim term. I don't think we can do that, can we, Jack?
No, the statute does not allow for a interim appointment. The statute is fairly vague, but it just says that it's for a 3-year term, and that same language is in our ordinance. So under the circumstances, if you make an appointment, it's for a 3-year term, period.
Mayor, Laura's back, so we're gonna go to Laura
Yeah,
next.
absolutely. Yeah, give the floor back to Laura. Laura, can you
Thank
hear?
you.
us? Yep, there
Thank
you
you.
go.
I think I'm back.
Yes, you are.
I would just like to finish by saying that Shane is the most dedicated, competent person I have ever worked with. And I've spent a lot of time volunteering for the town. It's going to be a very frustrating for me, but I'm not sure if Shane doesn't get reappointed that I'm going to continue in my volunteer roles. I feel like you are putting out an employee who has done a phenomenal job. You're worried about her salary when she's gotten almost $250,000 in grants in the past year. I think that's not an acceptable way for you to behave when she has been tremendous at her job. And I feel that the township committee should really be ashamed of themselves. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm done.
Thank you, Laura. I think Pamela was next.
Pamela, if you can unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
I did state my address earlier, but I'll be happy to repeat it. Pamela Ojids, 36 The Crescent, Millington. I think Laura Pesci did an excellent job in expressing the feeling of many in this town, myself included. I'm going to add a couple of things. I'll try my best to stay within my 3-minute limit. Shane might be paid for 24 hours a week, but I know firsthand that she works far, far more than 24 hours a week. The township's getting a bargain. So if you are thinking that you want to save money by reducing her hours, you are sadly mistaken, and I think that's going to backfire and it will cost you more money. Some of the things firsthand that I have witnessed with Shane, her ability to coordinate on the fly, examples being the shelters and the warming centers during storms, the wellness and check-ins to seniors during pandemic. So I found the criticism rather surprising. Being a senior myself, I got those calls. I appreciated those calls. And as far as following up on vaccinations, I get calls from the state making sure that I've been fully vaccinated, which I have, and apparently their records are not up to date because I've received calls from the state. How many people do we need to follow up on that? Regarding the Medical Reserve Corps, Shane knew that I was a retired nurse. She reached out to me and recommended, asked me if this was something I was interested in doing. I followed up. I have been volunteering at vaccination sites because of Shane's efforts. And I would like to say that I have helped increase the vaccination rate in Long Hill Township by being a volunteer vaccinator at the Morris County site because of Shane directly. Another example that I can speak to directly is when a transformer blew on our street. I was shocked and very pleased to see JCP&L, who gets a lot of criticism, but JCP&L showed up in a surprisingly quick response. When I went out to thank the men, they said, and I will quote you, "We love working with Shane. We'll do anything for Shane." Her predecessor was expletive deleted. I can't tell you what they said, but they in JCP&L respect an employee more than I'm seeing the respect tonight. She works well beyond her hours. She's brought hundreds of thousands of dollars of grant money. This proposal is illogical to me. It makes no sense. I don't feel that I'm getting the true motive for this change. I'm sure there is one, but I think transparency is lacking. I see that the rush to reorganize, I understand the deadline for March 31st or May 31st. I strongly, and I can't say this more strongly, and you can hear my voice cracking, Shane should be reappointed to her position tonight. Job responsibilities can be altered. I was a manager of a multi-million-dollar department for over 30 years. These things can be done. I am so disappointed in what I'm hearing tonight.
So thank you, Ms. Ogins. Nancy, could you explain exactly what a FEMA reimbursement is?
Yes, so these are not grants. These are FEMA reimbursements that at least 90% of the towns get. It is the coordinator's most important job is to deal with department heads who spend a lot of time, including the CFO, the police chief, the DPW director. They put all the figures together. The coordinator coordinates them, meets with FEMA, submits them. We get reimbursed for money that we put out for overtime equipment, things like that. So they're not grants. There is one grant a year for, I believe it's $10,000. The EMPG grant. That's the grant. That's the only grant. The rest are FEMA reimbursements. And Mayor, if I can, and I really don't want to get into a debate with anybody, but I have to give Mayor Ray credit, former Mayor Ray from last year. He was 1,000% in charge of the whole COVID response. There's no question. I mean, I laughed at him in the beginning because I thought it was nothing. And he started it. He started the task force. He was 1,000% behind everything that happened. And at some point, after we took care of all of the immediate needs, he said, I want to focus on seniors. And I said, hey, how about if we start calling them? And I said, I would like to dedicate town hall employees because everybody's working from home. Let's have town hall employees start making calls to seniors. So honestly, it was the mayor and I who started that. No disrespect to Shane. They took it up afterwards, but we started that.
Is my mic live? Is my mic still live?
It is.
Well, I think it's lovely that you did that, but I'm at a loss for why you would not have involved OEM right from the start. Why would you take it upon yourselves to do it when you have an OEM coordinator?
Mayor Ray, maybe you'd like to address that.
And if you're not happy with performance, there's a way to address that.
Brendan,
you're muted.
Brendan, you're on mute.
Sorry. No, I think we're getting way off the point here, right? Everything that I've heard really argues the point that the new position is the way to go. And because the OEM function in Long Hill has been going more and more towards social programs. And so we are now codifying that at last in a new position. And we've spoken to Shane about that new position. And we hope that she'll be interested in pursuing that position. And the OEM, the actual OEM, the more kind of emergency management, whenever we have storms or hurricanes or whatever other types of emergency that might befall us, what we are proposing is that we will have more of a traditional type of OEM individual who will be activated on an as-needed basis, and all of the FEMA reimbursements and all the other things will be staffed appropriately by the township in order to maintain the same level of reimbursements. But everything that has been described so far within OEM. I don't necessarily think it's an OEM function necessarily, but what we've done is we've taken all of those programs and we've said, you know what, we're going to have them, we're going to codify them, and where necessary, we're actually going to expand upon them. And as I say, we've talked to Shane in great detail about it, and we hope that she'll be interested in it. We haven't heard that she is or she isn't, but that's certainly a discussion that we're hoping to have. But when it comes to OEM and the emergency part of it, we're bifurcating the role. We're doing the right thing, I believe, and we're putting people's skills to we're bringing people's skills to bear where they're most appropriate. That's what we're doing. And so all of this outrage, I just don't get it. Because we're actually, everything that's been said argues exactly for what we're doing.
Then offer her the position now.
Jack, Jack, can you weigh in on the process for that?
Yeah, I don't think that
Find a
process.
more qualified person.
I-
And you
I
are
don't-
going to.
Ma'am, please let the attorney speak.
I wasn't done. Now I'm done.
I don't think that process should be done in public this evening. I think that's a discussion between the Township Committee and Shane Daly. The topic for tonight that was the subject of the Rice notice is the appointment of an OEM coordinator, an emergency management coordinator.
Then do it.
Well, okay. So, thank you, Ms. Ogins.
My pleasure.
And I think it's Guy Roshto is up next.
If you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Guy Roshto, Millington, Ave Maria Court. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
First, let me say, I agree with Nancy in terms of Brendan's job last year. Outstanding, amazing. There's nothing I could say except that. I saw him do some amazing things last year that if he was not around, I would bet would not have happened. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Ray, for that. I'd also say that I think you already know, so I'm repeating what everyone else is saying, but you all know the work that Shane puts in, and the comment made by one of the other callers saying it's a bargain, I think is absolutely true. Having said that, I am still a little fuzzy on what's going to happen on Monday. So can someone describe to me, Monday comes, I think Monday is the last day, right? Whatever the next day after the last day is, say it's Monday. Monday comes, what is going to happen if there's an emergency? What's the town's response plan for an emergency on Monday?
If no appointment is made this evening, then there will be a vacancy which will be filled as quickly as possible. In the case of an emergency, I think the police chief and the administrator and the mayor and others will step in and deal with the emergency.
Is everyone agreeing that's the process, that's the plan? So the town now is adopting this plan that the chief will become the OEM director pro temp?
Okay, well, that's not what I said, but I said if there's an emergency in the short period, interim period, when there is no emergency management coordinator, then other people in emergency services will have to step up. And
How long will we be out of having an emergency management coordinator?
I would hope we could have an appointment by the next meeting.
So
there may be circumstances beyond the Township Committee's control, but that would be the hope.
So best case, the town would be without a coordinator and at risk for 2 weeks.
Well,
I'm not sure I know what you mean by at risk.
Without a coordinator, whether they'd be at risk is your characterization.
Well, so you guys know what Shane does, obviously. And I know what Shane does. Guy and I witnessed what Shane does during Hurricane Sandy. I don't think someone can step into that position without having real institutional knowledge about what it takes to coordinate with the Morris County OEM, what it takes to make sure that everyone is documented, signing in and signing out. I just don't see a chief of police doing that kind of job. So I'm asking, who's going to do all of that, those little things that are required in an emergency? Who's going to take up that position for the 2 weeks that you're not going to have someone?
So, Guy, and you're right, you and I worked very closely together during Sandy. Ken Folger was the OEM director during Sandy.
Yes, but Shane was his right-hand man.
That's
or
correct.
woman, I should say, apologize.
That's correct.
And she was coordinating when Ken was out working with the JCP&L crew, she was the one coordinating everything. So I just use that as an example, Mayor. There's hundreds of those kinds of examples. So during the floods, Shane was there. During every outage like tonight, Shane is there. All I'm asking is for the next 2 weeks, who is that person?
Well, I mean, look, I think Jack explained it as best he could. And keep in mind, we would have preferred having this conversation last month. It just didn't evolve that way.
But, Mayor, if I could say something, I mean, I think, a Guy has, he's raised a concern, right? And what I would say is that the concern is really minimal because we have and I've seen them firsthand as Guy, you have as well, Guy Rostel and the mayor has seen the team work together. We're blessed in this town to have the fire officials, the chiefs, the police chief, the command staff in the police and the squad, and to have them, but not only have them, but to see the way that they work together. And whenever it comes to what these are really, what Guy talked about were really kind of administrative functions. There are a number of deputies in the OEM group who are ready and primed to kind of step up and take care of those administrative functions. And so having, I'm part of the emergency services in the town. I've had the privilege of working with the leaders of the emergency services, and quite frankly, I don't see it as being at risk at all to the town. And we will manage emergencies in the exact same way that we always have done over the next few weeks. We might be have to ask some of the individuals to step up and maybe take on another task in terms of the administrative functions, but we will be absolutely safe as we and we'll come out of it the same way we always do because of the team we have in place.
All right, Brendan, I accept that. Thank you very much. I guess my other question is related to the new role, the new position. Forgive me, but what I've heard tonight is something like a social services coordinator or something to that effect. When is that piece of this puzzle going to happen? What's the timing on that? Is it a done deal? Maybe is the first question.
Well, it's a done deal in that it will happen. The question is, when will somebody fill that position? And that's something that Jack has kind of advised us not to discuss tonight. But I think it's pretty clear what our intention would be.
Yeah.
Our desire would be not only created immediately, but filled immediately.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Guy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Guy.
I don't know who's next.
Roseanne, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you could state your name and your address for the record, please. Roseanne, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi.
There you go.
I had raised my hand when you guys were trying to figure out who was on what meeting. But since you called on me, and I'm Roseanne Calori, I'm 1782 Valley Road. I stand by what Pam and Loris Pesci said, Pam Ogden and her. Shane's doing a great job. I find it odd that you want to remove someone from, or I don't even know if you're removing someone from position, but if you're trying to eliminate a position that's working well and doing right by the people for the last years, it seems odd that you want to pull someone. You want to increase positions, expand the horizons, responsibilities, and have somebody lead. You don't want to have zero experience. So that's just a take. If something's working right, don't break it. Just supplement it. My take. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. I think, I don't know who's next. So why don't we just go in the order that they appear, Mrs. Petrus?
We're gonna allow everyone to speak once. Is that correct, Mayor?
I think so. I'm not sure. I know I see Laura and Miss Ogen's hands up. I don't know if that was just because it hasn't turned off. Certainly those who haven't spoken
Okay.
should go next.
It looks like Larry, Nancy, did you promote Larry Fast? Okay. Larry, if you're on, you can unmute yourself, and if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yes.
If you got me there. Larry Fast, 498 Long Hill Road in Gillette. I've been one of the, well, a certain member going back to almost the beginning and connected with OEM. I'm one of the deputies there. And I just wanted to start off by saying that this evening was the first I'm hearing about this. I thought it was unusual that not a phone call, not an email, an informal chat, and other things I'm connected with the town. It's kind of surprising. But also what I'm hearing described, the social services position, it sounds very laudable, but it isn't anything I recognize as being the type of internal functions I see up close over at OEM. I mean, just within the last week or so, I was still signing forms for the FEMA reimbursements. You know, it's an ongoing thing. So it's a much more complex than I think somebody referred to it as an HR speak on this. I just don't think that this is a function to be experimenting with. To expand it, I can understand that. I can see other things, but you know, this lack of sort of recognition of what I've been living with in this world, both under Ken Fulgar and more recently, is a little disconcerting. It's one of those things where, you know, I think if it's another, somebody else said, if it ain't broke, you know, don't try to fix it. Well, maybe there's some things on it. A couple of points I just wanted to make. I'll try not to speak for too long on this. I do think that a lot of money has come back into reimbursements. There's a lot of value that Shane has brought to the job that's way beyond the dollar figures and the hours that are actually on the books. And you do get what you pay for, so that those towns that are not putting out even this modest amount of money, they're not known as the powerhouses. Florham Park and Chatham Township were brought up. They are not known, and I'm around the county in particular because of one of my couple of county commissioner appointment positions. So I do get to interact with many of the 39 municipal governments. They don't have the reputation we've got here in Long Hill. And one of my other positions, which is in Essex County, based in West Orange, where I serve with a couple of members of the town council there, they know about Long Hill as this self-driven thing. That's a much bigger town. Jack knows because we both grew up in the adjacent town of Livingston. I think a population of about 40,000 people. And they have, out of their OEM and CERT, they've got 30-something people. We're always up near 100. We're self-sufficient. And it's important because we are very far from our county center of emergency management. We've had to learn how to walk on our own 2 feet here. So I just don't see throwing that out in order to do something else. Now, the health outreach, wonderful, laudable thing, but we've done that in the past. I think Laura Pesci referred to it. I remember being part of the coordinating of the MRC teams that were going out during Sandy for the people without power, the seniors, the lists, the phone calls that CERT volunteers were doing. Sounds very similar. We already have something in place to do that. I would love to see it strengthened, but I don't know they have to reinvent the wheel in order to do that. The health programs that we have, our Bernard's people are outstanding. You know, we don't have our own health department because we are too small. And it's not only small towns that have combined in order to share the services. I've recently, during COVID, because my mom is homebound in the house I grew up in Livingston, coordinating with Livingston Milburn Health Department for homebound vaccines and senior well checks and that sort of thing. And it's great. It's a wonderful model. We kind of have the basis of that already in place with our Bernard's arrangements. So I wouldn't want to see that pushed off to the side. Just one or two more points and I'll let it go. One of the things with OEM, and this goes back to Ken Fulgar and it's continued under Shane. And again, it's more not the individuals, although I think the world of Shane, this is more about the structure that we currently have. We are proactive in that we run tabletop exercises for anticipated emergencies, things that might happen in our town that somebody can't just step up to the job on a temporary basis or a fill-in basis. We've explored in depth over the last decade, things like a derailment on the train tracks, the pipeline. We have the high pressure Williams Transco line. What if that blows? That's a major emergency. Gaming it out ahead of time with all the emergency management people coordinated by your OEM director in order to know who's responsible for calling whom at the power company, who's going to get the gas company to turn off the major valve downstream, what kind of vehicles are needed to get into the isolated parts of the railroad tracks, that kind of stuff. I don't want to see that go away. This is something that is almost baked into the quarterly interdepartmental meetings that are done with emergency management. Let's see, the other thing, well, paperwork I was talking about for FEMA, that seems like since the Snowtober storm, it's never stopped. There's always stuff that's coming out of Trenton or Washington that needs to be done. So again, that's not something just to hand out on an ad hoc basis. So I think I've made my point. I think Shane has done an outstanding job. I've had incredible respect for her. I would think both her input into what the town, the value she brings to the town, as well as her ability, as Ken Fulgar had done before her, to create a cadre of volunteers that is enormous, that is really unlike almost any other town. That too, if we're going to go into an HR designated middle management, how can we get most value out of this approach rather than looking at what we have and doing an analysis on what's really good about what we have and seeing how we can build on that rather than sort of throwing it out and rebuilding it for an experiment. That scares the heck out of me. I just think it's a very dangerous approach. So I would like to endorse keeping Shane on and then building the rebuild as you want. I would like to see that she is still here when June 1st rolls around. And if there's going to be some tinkering or some wholesale restructuring, that can be done afterward, but with her locked into the position. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Larry.
It looks like Mrs. Petrus
Yeah.
is next. I'm going to allow her to speak. If you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Jackie Petrus, 46 Sunset Place, Millington. Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to point out that Ms. Malul, when you said you didn't want to discredit Shane, you very intentionally did so in your comment and wasn't necessary. We all see the pictures in the papers and things and see all the praise that Mr. Ray gets, and Shane does not get that same kind of same photo ops and the same kind of accolades. And this is her.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mrs. Petros.
So I just would like to make that clear. Let's give credit where credit is due. it seems like this is business as usual here, whereas people find out things at the very last minute and the decisions are already decided before the people really get to know about what's going on. And that seems to be something that I've seen as a little bit of a trend. My guess is you already know who you will choose as this part-time OEM officer.
We do not. We
You
do
do
not.
not?
I want to
Okay.
be very clear. We do not. We've said that several times in this meeting.
Okay, I hope that's true, because again, it seems that that's not always the case here. This bold experiment that you speak of seems very short-sighted, and I think that we look to Long Hill to be exemplary. And as Mr. Fast mentioned, Shane's, not only the bajillion years that she volunteered and all the work she put in previous to actually taking on this position, you're not going to be able to replace that by an on-call person, as Mr. Fast very, very eloquently stated. And I think your bold experiment's very short-sighted. And thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Petras. Just one minor correction. To be clear, this was on the agenda in the second meeting in April, and then, of course, on the first meeting in May. So it didn't come out of nowhere. It was on previous agendas, and it didn't happen for reasons I've already referenced.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification, but you know, it's just seems like business as usual, but thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is CA. If you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Charles Arenowitz, Heritage Road, Millington. I believe the problem we had about 9:20 occurred because most or some of the town of Millington or village of Millington got its power back, thank God. And that's where everybody had to reboot and get back in.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
It's rather ironic tonight. We're talking about OEM and we're in the middle of a power outage, major tree damage and power outage, okay? And I don't know how Shane can have the time to come in here and talk about her job when we've got this power outage, but that's in itself. I concur with some of the prior comments on the behavior and contributions of Mayor Ray during the COVID-19 and what went on. That guy, Rosto, eloquently described. But let me tell you this, as some others have said, Shane is a steal for this town. I'm a business person, and you look at the economics, and you can say, oh, it's just FEMA applications. Let me tell you, if you don't document it, you don't get it. She documented it and got it and paid for herself. Okay? And I hear, Mayor, your comments about this is April, May. We're 5 days away from losing an OEM director. I don't care if it was in April. We shouldn't be discussing this on May 26th. I don't want a response to that, but this should have never happened. And you can tell by the number of people on this call, we were uninformed of what was going on here. I looked at the agenda tonight and I see that we'll have an open discussion on the OEM director. I saw the agenda 2 days ago, it wasn't there. It was in executive session. I understand what happened, but come on. Why do you think you have so many people on this call tonight? Because they're behind the OEM director and what she's done and dedicated for this town. And I'm embarrassed that she had to go through this tonight.
Thank you, Chuck.
I'd love to see the job description of this vulnerable population advocate. And if I've got to Oprah it, I'll Oprah it. And I'm looking forward to Shane continuing her job on June 1st. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I mean, the one thing I can say, so everyone realizes, we absolutely will get every penny coming to us from any FEMA reimbursement in future issues. That doesn't answer the other side of this question, but if from that perspective, that won't be missed. That I'm quite certain of. But the rest of it, I think I appreciate everybody speaking and well, I think we hear you. So, I don't mind, if the committee doesn't mind. I think I saw a couple of hands raised. Well, Mrs. Petrus, you just spoke. Is that still up there by accident or? I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Well, there you go up again though.
I'm gonna allow her to talk if you want.
Well, to be fair, if we're gonna go in the order, I think Laura had her hand up first. And Laura is a longtime volunteer in town, and my dear friend. So why don't we, Laura, did you want to speak again?
I will promote her to allow to talk.
Hi, it's actually Mike. Laura's, probably wouldn't ask to speak twice in the same night, but I will. I just have a process comment to make. Since we've talked a lot about process, and frankly, I made fun of it earlier, I want to suggest that how this process could have been very different. If there was truly a desire for Shane Daly to continue to work for the town, and that's kind of been hinted around tonight and then almost suggested and encouraged, this process should have started months ago. And the conversation should have been, Shane, we're thinking about reworking the position you currently occupy. We'd like you to consider the new role, and here's what it looks like. So the fact that we're here 5 days before the expiration of her current contract is a disgrace. Charlie Arenowitz, and I don't always agree with Charlie, is 100% right about this. The fact that this has been, you got yourself backed into a corner is just unforgivable. Thank you.
I think Pamela Oggins is next.
I'll make this very brief because I exceeded my 3-minute limit before. And this is a credible prediction. It's not a threat, so please don't take it that way. But are you prepared for a massive loss of CERT volunteers if you go along? I see your lips moving, Mr. Mayor, but I can't hear you. So just, again, this is something you will need to take into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogins.
So I think the power, well, I'm just getting the power update here. So give me 1 second. All right, so
Mayor Guy Rashdow would like to speak if you are okay with me promoting him to allow.
well, since he has my favorite first name in the world, I think he should speak again.
Mr. Rashdow, there you go.
Thank you, Guy One. Hey, real quick question, Jack. Is there a possibility to keep the position or reduce the hours of the position and pay it more, and then have a process to resign that position? Like Shane would resign that position if offered the other position?
Jack,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I just muted myself, I think, instead of unmuting myself. It would not be legally enforceable. Because as I say, the statute says the appointment is for a 3-year term, period. So there's no allowance for an interim appointment or a temporary appointment or anything of that nature.
So legally, that you're saying it's possible, it's just not enforceable. That would be kind of a handshake with Shane then, and we all know Shane's character.
That's
Jack,
correct.
Jack, if I can, the statute says the only person who can remove an OEM director is the governor.
Or
No, I
she
think-
resigns, I'm asking.
Yeah, I do think a coordinator can resign.
I'm not sure, what are you recommending? And not that, you know, I don't want to put you on the spot. That's not fair. That's not, it's not your responsibility to make a recommendation. But what are you saying?
I'm asking the question, I think you have a way out tonight, right? I feel like other people have said, you've boxed yourself into a corner here. And it's not going to end well, in my opinion. And so is it possible that you could reappoint her to the position, have a conversation with her, but with the understanding this new position is going to come up and she would resign her current position and then move on, right? So she always has a position. She's not out of a job, because what I'm hearing right now is you're essentially firing her on May 31st,
Yeah.
and you might hire her back 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, maybe.
Guy, can I ask Jack to dovetail into your comment? Jack, what would happen? Could we simply not appoint anybody to the position because it had artificial deadline, because we don't have anybody in mind anyway? And then make an appointment of anyone we choose in the future?
I'm concerned that it could be construed as an automatic renewal of the appointment. If you took no action, is that your question, Mayor?
Well, how about if we take action, could we then undo that action? I'm trying not to use specific names.
Right. If you took action and made an appointment, no, you could not undo that. As Nancy pointed out, only the governor can remove an emergency management coordinator once the appointment is made.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Jack. I thought I heard you say Shane could.
Yes, absolutely. She could resign.
Right. So that's what I'm suggesting here.
All right. Okay. Well, Phyllis, I'm not cutting you off, Guy. Did you want to say something more? I guess what you're saying, that if she were appointed with the understanding that she would resign to take the other position.
Absolutely. I think that is the right thing to do for Shane and for the town and for the CERT program and for mitigating risk. And I know, Brendan, probably you and I disagree on the risk part of it. I do think there is a little bit of risk, might be minor, but I think this is the best way out of a sticky situation.
Right. Yeah. All right. Look, Bill, by the way, I don't necessarily disagree or whatever. Well, I'll speak at the end. I think it's Phyllis's turn.
Phyllis, if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Phyllis Fast, 498 Long Hill Road in Gillette. Just one thing that I'd like to just bring up again, that I know it was touched on in the beginning, but everyone keeps talking about how the legal issues here and who is the actual person who is responsible for reappointing or appointing this position. I keep the mayor.
Under the ordinance, Phyllis, it's a mayoral appointment.
It's
But
a
as it
mayoral.
said- Yes.
And I would like to just remind the mayor that he knows the job that Shane has done and
Absolutely.
the loyalty that she has had to this town.
No
and
doubt.
How much she has put in. She's puts in above and beyond anything that's needed from her. And Mr. Mayor, this is your decision. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that it?
Mayor, it doesn't look like anybody else is looking to speak.
Okay. Hold on one second. I just want to get another update. Okay. And I'm probably not going to make my, first off, regardless of what the state statute allows, it's my decision, that sounds so pretentious, that I want this to be a township committee decision. Because in a township committee form of government, I think it's inappropriate for the mayor to make appointments. We do that with the planning board, even though the mayor can make appointments to the planning board, we do it by committee, which almost seems counterintuitive when it says committee and not council. That said, and this is the part where I probably can get some people, some of my colleagues on the committee upset. I don't know what the word is. It's not troubled, but it's not influenced. The emergency services folks who we have not got a chance to hear from, but we've heard from a lot of volunteers on this board, and you know, God bless all you volunteers. You do, and Shane would be the first one to say it. You do what she does, and in some cases even more. You know, and no doubt Shane puts in more hours than what she's paid for. What we were trying to do, of course, is to look, we're trying to take advantage of all of the not take advantage of, but the volunteers in this town are unbelievable, and it's almost like I would prefer they make the choice. You know, it's hard for me. I mean, I will say, I definitely think Shane is the perfect person to do the other roles we were talking about, and we would reduce the so-called hours that OEM does. And I know there was some remarks made about the other towns, Chatham and Florham Park, but they do get the grant. They do get the FEMA reimbursement. So I don't want to focus too much on that. There's so much more that goes into what OEM in this town have done over the years. First by Ken and his army of volunteers, and now by Shane and her army of volunteers. And I, you know, on some level, we've heard from those volunteers. While I definitely think the right structure is this other role named to be determined, we'll call it vulnerable population. And I do think that's a critical function that we want to and will fill. And I think somehow we've crossed the line into where it's blurred. But a lot of this came at the volunteers all of a sudden, in part because that's just the way the process is, and it's not something we inherit. And Jack, I get what you're saying, that there's a legal concern, but if we don't take action tonight, your fear is that it's an automatic appointment.
That would be my fear. I think the chances are remote, but it's a concern.
You know, I'm not concerned with remote legalities. And the worst that would happen is that, and I'll call you Miss Daly out of respect, not out of lack of familiarity. The worst that happens, if what you said evolves, is that Shane Daly is reappointed. That's the worst that happens if we take no action tonight.
That's right.
and you do think it's a remote situation. I
That's
think an
correct.
awful lot has been presented to Shane. Granted, we tried to do this last month, but it was not, it just didn't work out, at that time. So I'm not at all complaining about that. But I am concerned about all of the emergency volunteers in this town that have spoken tonight, and others that have not had a chance to opine. So if it's a remote chance, and I don't want to make it, by the way, I can live with it either way. I think the volunteers in this town should have an opportunity, and there are others that have not spoken this evening. I do think Shane would be unbelievable in the role we described, and it would be evolving. And I do think OEM, as critical as it is, in its state-defined definition, would still work well. We would get those FEMA reimbursements. We would get the state grant. I'm not worried about that. I am worried about the morale of the volunteers in town. On one hand, I said, wow, I didn't expect that, but maybe I should have. And one volunteer who hasn't, and she'll kill me if I say this, she does an incredible amount of work for this town. Some of the others are visible, some of them are not. And Linda Olmsted is one of those who does an incredible amount of work as a volunteer. So what my recommendation is that we take no action tonight. Understanding we need to revisit this. Understanding that perhaps members of the Township Committee can speak with some of the other volunteers in town who have not spoken. Perhaps we reduce the hours, because as everyone said, the number of hours that are put in by Shane are more than she gets paid for, but so are the ones that are put in by every other volunteer. And we don't pay them. So, and if the downside to taking no action tonight is the remote chance that there is an automatic reappointment, that's a risk I'm willing to take. So I'll turn it over to Matt. You're up top. So my recommendation, I want to be clear. My recommendation is to take no action, and for us to do give people time to reflect upon this. Not just the committee, but other members of the community. I don't want to do anything to affect negatively the volunteers in this town. And what I've heard tonight on a smaller basis is that it just might do that, although it is certainly not the intention of this. I agree with, I think, how Brendan or Scott phrased it earlier. And I phrased it that way too. I look at it as a promotion. I think this role that we described, more important is not, I got scolded by Shane when I said de-emphasize. So I don't want to use the word de-emphasize OEM. I just wanted to, what I was trying to say is take out some of the critical functions that she and her volunteer team already handle. And
Hey, Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
can I jump in here for a second?
Yes, you can.
So I'm listening to everybody tonight, and I'm actually troubled by the misunderstanding that has kind of come up in this, and and I'll defer to Jack on this. I mean, we do have a draft vulnerable resident advocate job description, and people want to hear what that is. Can we show that?
Absolutely, you can show it.
Can I screen share?
Just with the caveat that it's a draft.
It's a draft.
Under discussion.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'll be very clear. I mean, this is not my work, right? But, I've studied this as, you know, we've kind of listened to the argument as to what is going on. I want everybody to understand, I mean, this is a real thing. I mean, this is not like some excuse. I'm hearing this outrage that we're doing something. We're actually expanding. We shouldn't be talking about one person here. We should be talking about the residents in this community that we're serving. And there's a demographic in this community that we need to do a better job on. And this is, you know, we have vulnerable residents. I mean, duties, effectively communicate information about programs and services, advocacy servers, keeping a database. And I understand Shane does a lot of this. Well, a lot of what's here is not emergency management, right? We've allowed that role to kind of turn into something bigger. You think about what we're doing here, we're not firing Shane, we're just giving her a different title if she decides that she's willing to do this. So, you know, I'm really troubled by the misunderstanding that seems to be brewing out here. The other thing that we have is metrics around this, you know, feedback and questionnaires, engaging with the residents. The most important people here that we're supporting are the residents. That's the most important thing. Those are the stakeholders. Those are the people that we want to care for here. Now, this is something that, you know, there are folks in town that aren't on this call today that have been asking for this kind of thing. We've heard it.
Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there. Mayor, I'm fine whichever way you go. I'm very objective on this. I love the idea of this position. I'm fine with whatever you want to do, but, you know, let's not be taken hostage by recharacterization or changing of the narrative here. Because the narrative here is that we want to do more for the residents of the town. The residents of the town. And personally, as a resident of the town, I don't want to hear our volunteers saying that they're going to resign if they don't get their way. That's not the way we behave. That's not. I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid. I'm not taking my ball and going home. Please, people, don't do that to us. Please.
Scott, thank you. Yeah, I think, well,
I agree. I'm sorry, Mayor, but I agree wholeheartedly with Committeeman Lavender on that one.
Mayor, it does, oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Ray.
No, please go ahead, Megan.
Mayor, it looks like Chief Naga would like to speak. I don't know if you would like me to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Chief, if you could just unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. How are you guys hearing the transmission?
Chief.
Good.
All right. So appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm not sure that you're really going to enjoy what I have to say regarding this matter, but I'm not here to speak about another employee's performance and whether or not I agree about reappointing it. But what I'm here to speak about tonight is the fact that the police department was referenced in conversationally over potentially stepping in, or that police chiefs in other towns do step in. Want to clarify something to the public that wasn't mentioned tonight is that there is a residency requirement for an OEM coordinator. While most of you do know that, I do not live in Long Hill Township, so I don't want to give a false perception or some people be misled tonight that there's some kind of backdoor agenda that the police department somehow involved with trying to overtake this position. Legally, I cannot take that position as OEM coordinator. So the police department will still handle emergencies regardless of what's going on with this position. We would fulfill all the duties and responsibilities that's provided to us under law and under Title 40. But at no time would I be able to take over the OEM coordinator or director position, as I do not have a residency in Long Hill Township.
Chief, I didn't mean to imply that. I just was responding to Mr. Rochdale's question about the short term, if there were a vacancy in the position, that others would step up in that interim period. I did not mean to imply that you
No,
were
no, and I'm
seeking
not
or
saying,
being considered.
and I'm not saying that that was implied, but it seemed like that maybe potentially was the perception. So I wanted to clear the air, and I wanted to say that that's not my position. So the police department is going to rise to the occasion regardless of the emergency, and so will the fire departments and EMS. But I wanted to clear the air regarding that statement because it could be misconstrued, and I wanted to get ahead of any misconceptions.
Yeah, no, I understand. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. And, unfortunately, that adds to, I think in part, a big part of the issue this evening is maybe as absolutely well-intentioned and I think well-designed as the committee presented this new role. No one else had a chance to look at this, and most importantly, the volunteers that work in the emergency services groups. So Jack, I don't know what I keep falling back on the legality, but if the legality is that the mayor gets to make a decision here.
But Mayor, before you, if you're going to go down the road, I thought this was a committee decision, and that, and
absolutely
right. And so, everything that we've heard tonight, I think has kind of confused the issue. Whenever we originally discussed this position or the reappointment way back in April, and this was not something that was rushed. We discussed it first in our last meeting in April, and it's been a series of unfortunate events that have brought us to this evening. We all decided, we all had the vision, and Scott presented it very eloquently. We realized that there are populations and residents in this town who need our assistance over and above what we're giving them right now. And we decided that when we looked at OEM, we saw that a lot of the OEM functions that everyone has talked about tonight and associates with OEM aren't necessarily OEM functions. They're more social based. And if you remember our vision, all five of us together, we decided that it would be the best thing to do here would be to take those functions that are not necessarily OEM and codify them in a new position. And that position is the one that we've presented tonight, and it's the one that we discussed with Shane. And as I said before, we hope that she'll express interest in those conversations will continue, because we feel that her skills are best suited to these types of programs in this type of position. Now, when it comes to OEM, the true OEM is wherever you look at other towns and other municipalities, is something which is activated on an as-needed basis for a true emergency. And thankfully, we get some emergencies, but it's certainly not. It doesn't warrant 25 hours a week. And so that's why we decided to bifurcate the position and take the OEM piece out of it, because really it's a distraction. And I think Scott said it earlier on tonight. You don't want you don't want the person who's looking after your vulnerable populations and looking out for them in an emergency to be also be concerned with a disaster declaration and then taking over the town. The person who can do both of those things, I don't think exists during a period like that. And so what we're actually doing is exactly what everybody has talked about tonight when they've talked about OEM. We've taken the social functions and we have the intention of making them even better, and we're putting OEM back to where we think it should be activated on an as-needed basis, and we will put
all of the team around that individual that we need in order to get the reimbursements, which is, as I think Nancy said, is the most important function of that job, is getting those reimbursements and putting the structure in place there. And so to back away and say, oh, because of what we've heard tonight, I'm going to keep the situation as is, I think it's wrong, and we're doing a disservice to all of the residents in this town, because as good as it is, it's not what we want. It's not our vision. It's not the vision that the five of us had whenever we thought about this. And we decided we were going to make it better. And if you're going to make it better, then you sometimes you have to do what might be seen as unpopular. And we've done things that are unpopular and in the past, and history has been our judge. And so tonight, if you're taking this from as a committee decision, my vote is to stay the course that we first discussed tonight. That is, if you're willing to, if you want to take it back and make this a mayoral decision, then do so. But you know where I stand on this, and I think you're part of those discussions. Whenever we all discussed it, we had the vision to make this better, and work, make it better, but still not affect any volunteers in this town, none. And if anything, it shows the kind of support that we give our volunteers, is that we see what they've been doing, we see what they've been up to, and we take it and we actually make it better for them. We give them the resources. And so to keep the situation as is, I think is totally wrong, and I'm against it. And it's not what we envisaged, the five of us, back in April, whenever we talked about this.
I agree with Brendan, because the first time this thing was broached, I wasn't on board with it. I had to be convinced that it was the right thing. And the more and more that I thought about it, I came to the point, no, this is the right thing. And so, it's very difficult for people to hear something like this for the first time and get on board with it. And, we have a responsibility to make a decision here. I agree with Brendan. I'm on board with Brendan. I mean, and I was a hard sell on this, but you guys, I hear the facts on it. I think it's a great thing. I think we're doing a good thing for the residents. And that's the thing that I think we're missing tonight. We haven't talked enough about the residents and what we're doing for them.
All right, Vic, were you saying something?
I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with Brendan.
Matt?
No, I have to agree with Brendan. OEM is a limited position, limited in the fact when we need it and when we don't need it. And I always like to put people in a position where they can thrive and flourish. Basically, our OEM position, I can't say spun out of control, but it's spun into something that nobody or another town has. And that's because of Shane, that it got to be what it is. And the outreach, I think Scott even brought it up, is not a OEM function. However, there are so many people in this community, and it was exposed, as we said earlier, with the pandemic. There are people that have food shortages. There is a larger immigrant population in town now that some of the parents don't speak English well and don't know how to get resources. All these people, aside from the elderly, all these people need to get serviced. And I think once this program's up and running, hopefully with Shane at the head of it, other towns are going to come to us, and almost like our CERT, they're going to come and say, wow, how'd you guys do this? Can you help us out, get started? Because it's really going to be serving a lot of people in town that don't know how to get resources that they deserve and they're owed and they need. So with the OEM, that's a small little piece of this. As I said, it's something that's needed on an everyday basis, thankfully. When it does activate, yeah, it's very important and it's very time consuming, but then when it's deactivated, it's a lot of downtime. So I have to agree with the other three members that we move forward with an different OEM director. However, I would love for Shane to come in. Basically, this position was almost created for her. I've seen her, I've worked with her, and I've seen what she does on a daily basis. The senior citizens love her. Lounge loves her. The disadvantaged people in town love her. She was helping get the Spanish COVID shots out. These are all extremely important things that are everyday events that need to be done on a daily or weekly basis, not just when it floods. I mean, granted, I hope there is hopefully there won't be another pandemic in our lifetimes, considering the last one was in 1918. Or we don't have another 100-year flood, even though with climate change and global warming, it's very possible. But there are a lot of things in town. And the electric, we can't control the electric. It's not our fault the lines are above ground and the trees knock down the wires and the infamous flying squirrel knocks out power by the Gillette train station almost every wind event. But again, that stuff, unfortunately, we have to learn to live with here. It's annoying, but I still think the benefit we're going to get out of this new position, and I think you're right, Mr. Mayor, when you say it's going to easily morph into a full-time position or shared services with other towns once they see how successful ours is. It's gonna benefit. And as I said, I like to put people in a position where they can thrive and flourish. And she is the perfect person for the new job if she wants to accept it.
Thank you, Matt. Look, I agree that it is incredibly well-intentioned and well-designed, and Shane is exactly the right person for it. My concern, and I believe Shane understands that, and she knows our hearts are in the right place. My concern about tonight is that there are so many volunteers in this town that are upset. They're hearing it for the first time tonight. Maybe upon reflection, it may sit better with them. But right now, it does not. And, you know, I don't know what several other senior volunteers in this town think. I've seen many senior volunteers on this call. I think Shane's perfect for the job. And I do think as time goes on, even regardless of how this works out, we're not going to pay OEM 25 hours a week. We've never looked at it that way because it involved other functions, first with Ken and then with Shane. So my concern right now, as much as it's Shane, and I think she's perfect for the role we are trying to design. And I think it's a better role. But it's everybody I see on this call and those who I don't see. You know, this is the first time they've seen that list you showed, Scott. And, you know, it's hard to digest all of those functions in one go. It's just more important. You know, as far as whether everybody can fulfill both roles well, you don't get a custom fit in an off-the-rack world. That's a line I remember from an old episode of MASH. Nobody, Brendan, you are right, nobody can fill both of those roles perfectly. It's not humanly possible. But I am concerned about the morale of the volunteer groups in this town. I am. I do not consider that getting bullied. I consider that acknowledging that they have concerns. So
Mayor, I think we've talked enough, or we've kind of danced around it enough. You tell us, you have the statutory authority to make it all by yourself. You've said that you've said it would be a committee decision. If you want it to be a mayoral decision, let us hear the decision. If you want it to be a township committee meeting decision, then let's put it to a vote.
Well, what I'm recommending, and I guess, Jack, you tell me if, and it sounds awful because I don't like that in a committee form of government. Does my role have the ability to take no action tonight?
If you take no action, it seems to me there are two possibilities. One is that Shane would remain as a holdover emergency management coordinator and be the de facto with no reappointment. The other would be is that you don't appoint her and that the position is vacant. It sounds to me like the township, the other four members want the latter, but as I say, under the ordinance, it's a mayoral appointment.
Right. So you're saying that no action, but no OEM director. But
well, I think you could state on the record, you know, you're not taking any action, and as a result, the position is vacant. or in the alternative, you're taking no action, and you anticipate that Shane will be a holdover in that position.
No,
But
but
without an appointment for a 3-year term.
But Mayor, I mean, we don't need to not take action. We don't need to do any of these things. The question's there. Do you want it to be, do you want the appointment to be a committee decision, in which case we take a vote, or do you want it not to be like that? You want to make the decision, in which case you make the decision. It's as simple as that. And really it's up to you. Do you want to make the decision? It seems to be your right, or do you want it to be a committee decision, as we've always discussed it, and as we've all bought into this position, and we've also done more than bought into it. We've actually, all 5 of us have contributed our thoughts on this, and that's maybe the delusion that we've labored under, that we would have a voice in this. But it's up to you. Do you make the decision, or do you want us to do it with you?
Well, I want the decision to be that we make no action or take no action tonight. And
so do you want us to vote on that, or do we get the opportunity to vote on that, or is that what you're doing as the mayor?
Well, no action,
because it's important, right?
Yes.
It's important, because I think if you say we don't take any action tonight and you let us vote on it, I think it's going to be voted down. But if you're saying it's my decision, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing anything, then that's something different, and that's different from what we've talked about up until now. Whenever it comes to this particular position,
right? And I understand what you're saying, and that's true. But to me, no action would mean we have time to take a breath and speak to the folks that this affects. And granted, the residents, no doubt, but also the people that serve those residents.
But didn't we kind of do that already, or no? Didn't we hear from people tonight, and haven't we all done our own independent research on the matter already?
We weren't allowed to. We couldn't speak to anybody in town before tonight. The first time we've heard from any member of town is tonight.
But
I mean, didn't we? Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Dennis.
No, sorry. Go ahead, Vic. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think we did an immense amount of research. We discussed it amongst ourselves. We've heard from the community. I'm not sure exactly what more there is to do here.
I think there are several other folks who have not spoken tonight that members of the committee might want to speak with. Is that sufficiently vague?
No, I don't understand. I really don't understand what you're saying here, because we originally, all 5 of us, had the exact same vision to help the residents right now who are not being helped or not being helped sufficiently. And we put together what the position description that we did, and we approached Shane and we talked to her about it. Now, as part and parcel of that, it was because it's a skill set thing. We looked at Shane's main skills and said, this is the position that we think would be best for her. Emergency management is a distraction, and let's take care of emergency management, and it will move forward the way it always does. And if there are any disaster declarations, we'll have somebody in place to run the town as defined in the statute. But meanwhile, the residents that we want to protect and are going to be protected the way that we want them to.
Yeah.
And that's everything that the OEM, every function almost that's been discussed tonight and that Shane has been lauded for has been a non-OEM function. That basically that's it. And now we're taking those functions that everybody seems to think are vital, and Shane's doing a good job, and we are saying, Shane, it would be really good if you took this ball that we're giving you and you can run up the field with it, because we're behind you 100%. one of the things that I said to Shane was that if she did take the position, if whoever took a position, and we hoped it would be her, the one thing that I warned her about is that she was going to be hearing from all 5 of us, because that's just how important this position was to each one of us and the success of it. And so I warned her that this was we were going to be talking to her a lot on a regular basis about how she was doing and how she thought that services could be expanded. And tonight it seems we're just walking away from that, because we've heard from a number of residents who I don't understand the OEM position really, and don't really seem to want to understand what it is we're actually doing here tonight.
And look, I don't disagree with almost everything you said, Brendan. The problem is this was put at them in a setting where it was hard for them to understand the difference. And in Long Hill Township, this role has evolved into something that isn't OEM. There's no doubt. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Right.
And I do think, management, what management should do is put people in a position where they can excel. And there's no doubt in my mind, Shane would excel in the functions that we are describing. But I'm just not willing to ignore the concerns that were brought up by many of the volunteers in this town who we know.
But Guy, I hate to cut you off, but these concerns are not concerns, because they're actually we were getting down to the person and the position, and it seemed to revolve around OEM, and the concerns were therefore not valid, because we're taking all those non-OEM functions that everybody loves and everybody thinks are great, and we're actually making them better. And we're showing the residents and we're showing the volunteers just how much support we are prepared to give them. I don't see any volunteer, once they understand and once they take the time to understand exactly what we're doing, being anything less than enthused by the action that we should be taking tonight. And the other thing is that we're charged with making decisions. We've thought about this decision, and we're going ahead and we've decided on a course of action. So, just like many other unpopular decisions that this committee has made, and as I said before, history has been our judge, and we made the right decisions. Even although if we had listened to popular sentiment at the time, it would have remained status quo. And so
I have to agree. I have to agree with Brendan. We were elected to dig into these kind of issues. We were elected to make hard decisions. Not everybody's going to understand all the background or have spent the hours and hours of time thinking through these things. And so, there comes a point where, if we know what the right thing to do is, we need to do the right thing, as opposed to abdicating. Right? This is no different than judging which way the wind is blowing on Facebook. I mean, we can't operate that way. And I understand. Right. I understand the hesitancy to kind of go against passion. And there have been certain people that have showed up today with passion. Well, I mean, yeah, that's natural. But we've spent a lot of time talking about this, and it kind of feels like taking a step backwards if we don't do what we thought was right to begin. We're going to wake up in the morning and know what it was we were supposed to do.
Yeah, I
mean,
agree.
am I wrong?
In addition, again, I know we've discussed this issue. We've all said the same thing multiple times. Look, OEM is a very narrow position. We have created a position where we thought that Shane could thrive and serve our community in a greater capacity. And I thought we were all in agreement here. No one's trying to hurt anybody. We're trying to do the right thing by everyone.
I hear you, Vic. I just think we need to take a breath. And
So what are you going to do? Are you going to put it to a vote, or are you making the decision unilaterally? Because that'll put us all out of our misery, and it'll allow everybody to go home tonight.
What I'm saying is I want to take a breath and for people to reflect on this. I do think it's the right role. I do think that Shane's the right person for that role. But, and I don't think it's like social media. The folks that have opined on this put in, as we do, a lot of volunteer hours. And I just want to take a breath. And the only downside to taking a breath, we could still make the same decision in a couple of weeks, right? I'm not saying that wouldn't happen, but I'd like us and the community to take a breath. Right now, it will leave a bad taste. And Jack, you said the only downside to that is the remote chance of an automatic reappointment, if I understood correctly. I don't see any downside to waiting. And just take the pulse of some of the very people that spoke tonight. I think some of the very people who spoke tonight may come around and agree.
So you think we should all our decisions should be taken by referendum?
Nope, I am not saying
that. That's basically what you're saying, because we have thought about this a lot.
No,
We've
that's
thought
not
about
what
it
I'm
for a long
saying.
time.
Let me finish though. You've spoken a lot. I am saying this will be a township committee decision. We will vote on it as a township committee. I just don't feel comfortable doing it tonight when so many respected volunteers in this town seem upset, if only because it was put to them in a way where they didn't have a chance to maybe look at it a little bit more closely or understand it more. That's what I'm saying. So, to Brendan's point, to put us all out of our misery, if that's the way you want to phrase it, Jack, unless I'm missing something, I could do that and just say no action. We will take action at a future meeting, maybe in 2 weeks or whenever that period is.
As I understand it, you're exercising your authority as mayor under the ordinance to not reappoint Shane. However, the expectation on your part is that she will continue as a holdover emergency management coordinator and have the de facto powers. You're not appointing her for a 3-year term. But you're making the decision as mayor to proceed that way.
To take no action.
Right.
I will publicly commit to, this will be a township committee appointment. So when the vote is taken, the township committee will vote. I will not exercise what I think is a flawed ordinance. And I didn't realize till tonight, Jack, that it was our ordinance that did that, not a state.
The state statute is silent. It says every municipality shall appoint.
But not mayor. We should change that ordinance. An appointment of this.
No. It says the mayor. The statute says the mayor has to appoint.
All right, well then what I can do is commit to, I will respect the township committee's vote. I just want to take a breath. And I would encourage everybody to speak to some members of the volunteer departments about this in the interim. So we can at least understand their concerns or maybe explain it better. Perhaps we didn't explain it well tonight. I think we did. I think what happened is this came out of sort of left field for most people. We've had time to reflect on this. I think it's a great move for the town. And I think Shane is wonderful. The passion that people spoke with is because of how good she is at those functions, as Brendan said. The part about getting reimbursements from FEMA or the grant, that will continue. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that will continue. We won't miss a penny of it. But I am concerned about the morale of our volunteers. And And while I do think all of us have, certain attributes and skills that are best applied in some areas and maybe not so much in another, in some cases, I just see no downside to taking a breath. So, whatever Jack said, whatever that,
Yeah.
whatever those words are.
And I stand corrected, Nancy's correct, the statute does say the mayor. Or it goes on, or in the case of. the
Well, then it's a
municipality.
flawed, then it's a flawed statute because committee form of governments should not allow a decision of this sort to be made by the mayor.
Well, the MOUL does say too, that planning board members are appointed by the mayor. So it's,
Right.
But yeah, so as I understand your action, and just so the record is clear, you're not appointing anyone to the position of emergency management coordinator effective June 1. Under the circumstances, Shane will continue as the holdover emergency management coordinator and will have the de facto powers of that office, which is not being appointed to a new 3-year term.
And state statute notwithstanding, I commit tonight that this will be a committee vote. And in this case, again, sounds pretentious. I will respect that vote. Whether we do it when's the next meeting? What's today? It's June 9th?
Correct.
And
June
what's
9th,
today?
yes.
What's today? May 26th. So that literally is 2 weeks. That's what I recommend, but I would implore my colleagues, if I could, please speak to other members of the town. While I do think it's the right structure, and I do think every function that we have described tonight, while the OEM functions are important, the other functions that Matt and Brendan and Scott and Vic and I have all described, they're more important on a day-to-day basis, far more important on a day-to-day basis. We wouldn't be talking about OEM evolving into a full-time position. No town does, none. But well, maybe the bigger towns like Jersey City and Camden, et cetera. Not a town of 8,800 people. So we're talking about a role that could evolve into a full-time position and a person that we think is ideal for that role. So I have not wavered on that. I think that's absolutely true. I'm troubled by the people I see on this call, some of which have spoken, some of who have not, that are upset. And I think we all need to take a breath. And that's what I'm recommending. So I don't know, how do we end? That's the way this meeting ends, not with a bang, but a whimper?
Yes.
All right, so, well, you know what, to be fair, I don't think we've completed the agenda, right? We've got to keep going a little bit. All right, so it's not quite a whimper yet. Old business. New business.
I have something, Mayor. Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do we have an ordinance in town that requires that anybody who builds a swimming pool over 400 square feet, which is a 24-foot pool, I believe, round, this is above ground, has to put in a 6-foot dry well? We have residents who have been trying to get their pool approved through zoning since March, and no fault of zoning. Zoning is following the ordinance, and the engineer is following the ordinance. And, the resident emailed me and said, the dry well is costing me more, and the engineering plans are costing me more than buying the pool, having it put in and doing the electric. And, you made me question whether our ordinance was too severe, and I spoke to our engineer about it, and he said that he has always believed that amount should be 1,000 square feet, that above ground pools 1,000 square feet or over should need the dry well. So the purpose of the statute, the purpose of the ordinance was to prevent flooding, because most of the town is in a floodplain, and it's always an issue, as everybody knows. So the people that I'm talking about, we're planning a 456 square foot pool. So just 56 square feet over the 400 allowable amount. And the engineer is going to be proposing to you in the next meeting or the one after that, that you amend the ordinance to allow pools that are 1,000 square feet or less above ground, this is, to not have to put the dry well in with certain circumstances, like whether they're in a flood zone or not, things like that, certain caveats. But for tonight, because these people have waited so long, and because of the de minimis amount over 400 feet that these people would be putting their pool in, because it's only 56 square feet over, I'm asking if you could waive the requirement in this one instance, and then you're going to be revisiting the ordinance at some point in the next month or so anyway, but so that these people who've been waiting so long can put their pool in, I'm asking that you waive the dry well requirement in this instance. And they're not in a flood zone, by the way.
Is this in the zoning ordinance, then, Nancy?
I believe it is.
Then
Yeah.
they need a variance or a waiver from the board.
Well, okay, to get a variance, I did talk to Paul about that. To get a variance would cost them even more money and take twice as long, 3 times as long.
I agree. I'm just
56
questioning whether the township committee can grant a waiver from a zoning ordinance requirement.
Well, they created the ordinance in the first place, right?
Well, that's true of every zoning ordinance was created by the township committee. But if you need a variance, you have to go to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna make these people go for a variance for 56 square feet for a swimming pool and the week before Memorial Day weekend? And by the way, I did tell them, based on our zoning officer, that if instead of a 24-foot pool, if they put in a 21-foot pool, there would be no drywall requirement, and they would be happy to do that, but they can't get one anymore at this point, because as you know, since COVID, pools are impossible to come by. There's a chlorine shortage, there's a pool shortage, so they have everything in place for the 24-foot square pool.
So that's you. I mean, what do you want to take a vote on this? How do you want to proceed?
Well, when we
Jack, is this mayoral? Can I make a decision?
Well,
You could take no action.
Well, I don't want to take no action. I mean,
What's changed?
Would somebody please tell Brendan I'm not talking to him? Actually, that was pretty good. So, I mean, literally, what do you want us to do? We can say yes, and we'll update the ordinance to take into account what has been recommended by the township engineer. How do you want to proceed?
I guess that's Jack's call.
It seems to me the current ordinance, as well intentioned as it's meant to be, is a bit misguided to put everybody in the same pool, pun intended. People that are in the floodplain and people that live on the top of Long Hill. And 400 is the current ordinance, right?
Correct.
And our township engineer, Paul Ferreira, said he would recommend 1,000.
Correct.
All right, so is this a committee vote? Can we just take a voice vote here?
Again, that's Jack's call, but I'm not asking to move it to 1,000. I'm just asking to waive the requirement for the dry well. So that's Jack's call, whether or not.
In this specific example, though.
It is a specific example, yes.
So Jack, legally, what can we do?
I've stated my position, but I'm not going to stand in your way if you want to say it's a de minimis increase.
Since I'm having fun, you know, and that using my authority, I'll go first. I say it's de minimis and we let them do it and we address the ordinance in the future to amend it as recommended by the township engineer. And-
This is
and
above
different-
ground, right, Nancy?
It's above ground, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But
I,
they are considered structures under the land use ordinance.
yeah, I agree with the mayor.
That's not something I've heard much in the last hour, so I appreciate
Well,
it.
Brendan didn't talk yet, so we'll see.
No.
Well, let's go to Scott next then.
I've talked enough. I have no opinion. I don't know how to swim.
You're a Boy Scout leader, for God's sake.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
Brendan, you're going last. Vic?
I think I'm good with, letting it go, changing the ordinance. We're talking about what did Nancy say? 47 feet, 47 square feet or something like that?
And it's above ground, by the way. Matt asked a good question there. It's above ground, so it's not permanent.
I would, unless I hear something, remarkably convincing otherwise, I'm fine with it.
So Brendan, there's 3 yeses, 1 abstention. So your vote means what you think it means, but go ahead.
I agree with Matt and Vic.
So I think we're deeming it a de minimis
Right, but
excess.
but let's, as quickly as we can address an ordinance that we think maybe needs to be changed. But for this
Yeah.
particular thing, Nancy, you would reach out to the resident?
I will, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
And
so-
Nancy, reach out to Paul too and ask him exactly how to change it.
Well, yeah, for right now, this is just for the one resident, and then
Right.
how to change it, he'll talk about that, because like I said, this is not, maybe it's not 1,000, maybe it's 750 or something, but
Or 447.
or you put in caveats about if it's in, whatever flood zone or whatever, and
Right.
there's always, and he said that no matter in whatever ordinance he is going to propose, that he will work with you to put in language that said, if you negatively impact your neighbors, then that needs to be addressed. So however you guys come up with that language, and that
Okay.
holds true for these people as well.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, I think we got that. Any other old or new business? None. Announcements. Well, no, actually, I have one old business. Nancy, could you do me a favor and look into a temporary speed bump or whatever you call those things at the stop sign in the parking lot? I was at with several members of the committee at a first aid squad event the other evening. And honestly, I was shocked at how fast people were driving through that stop sign. The reason we had a permanent speed bump put in there years ago, we removed it because it was damaging DPW shovels or something like that. And Scott, I know you have one up on where you live, where it can be put in on May 1st and removed on whatever, October 1st or something to that effect. I honestly, it was dangerous. We were standing there, and if a little child went running by, there's no way the car would have been able to stop. Cars, and I will point out, as much as we like to pick on the young ones, it was only one 18-year-old or so kid that stopped at that stop sign. Everyone else barreled through it. So anyway, you could see I was a little upset by that. I'd like to, not for tonight, I'd like to revisit the tree ordinance. While we did put one in place and it's wonderful, it helped us get a Tree City USA, it doesn't have any teeth. So if somebody wants to clear cut a lot, they can. I just want to put it on a future agenda as a discussion item to maybe put some teeth behind it. Right now, if I understand correctly, what is it, a permit if it's in the town right away? The town.
If it's on private property, you have to register, basically.
Register, and on a township right away, which
You
is
need a
still
permit.
private property, you have to get a permit.
Right.
But that's really the only teeth of the current ordinance. And I know we worked long and hard on this. And when I say we, I should really give the full credit to the town, the Shade Tree Commission.
And there are penalties for removing trees without a permit in the township right away or on township lands.
Or on township land. But almost every other town I know has some sort of ordinance where you replace a certain number of trees for a certain number that are cut down. Florham Park, who took a beating earlier today for some other reason, I think. But Florham Parks is quite onerous. For every tree 10 inches in caliper and above, you either replace it or you pay $325. And stunningly, I won't mention the property owner. One property owner removed 2,500 trees, permitted, it was allowed. They replaced 200 of them. That left 2,300 trees. And for that, they paid $750,000. Stunning, right? Stunning. So I'm not going there. I'm just saying I'd like to maybe have a conversation about how we can put some weight behind the tree ordinance. And again.
Are there, this is a question for Jack, are there penalties for people who take down trees and don't get a permit?
Yes.
Oh, there are?
Or who don't register.
Oh, who don't register?
Right. Remember, it doesn't even, I think there's not even a fee for getting a registration.
Yeah, we should enforce that part of the statute, those penalties to the fullest effect.
I will say this, one of the benefits of this evening's meeting is I have to buy one less Christmas card and pay for one less stamp. And there's some really positives that are coming out of this. Big announcement. I want to send our love and congratulations out to two township employees. I think they're officially still an employee, although today may have been the last day for one of them. Tom Delia, who was with the town for, I think, 24 years. Tom Delia is 24 years?
23.
23 years. He has accepted a position in another town. He can share where that is with anybody he wishes to, but I won't do it here. I just want to send out our best wishes and our for future success. Everybody in town knows Tommy. Tommy D, as I like to call him. And Danielle McClear, I don't know how long she's been with the town. I saw
About
Lisa,
3.5 years.
You know what? Maybe well, we are past public comment. Lisa, I don't know if you wanted to say something. If not, you can ignore me. But Danielle worked tirelessly as part of the rec department with and under Lisa Scanlon, and we have a rec department second to none for a town our size. So thank you to Danielle. Thank you to Lisa. I see Lisa's ignoring me, which is probably the smart thing to do. And Memorial Day, as was mentioned earlier, we have a parade on Monday. I think get there at about 9. It kicks off at 9:30. Does that sound right? I think that's right. The restrictions have been removed. If you feel you need to, wear a mask. If not, you are not required to. I think it's somewhat appropriate that the first event we have as a township after the challenging past 15 months is to honor those in their last full measure of devotion, gave their lives for the freedoms we all enjoy. And actually, at this point, did I forget any announcements? Any announcements from the Township Committee that I forgot? I know the lake is not having a grand opening like it typically would, because, of course, for obvious reasons. We might do something in the middle of the summer, maybe July 4th or something like that. I'll let Lisa speak to that at a future meeting. So at this point, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public for comments or questions on any topic, not just those that were discussed tonight, but anything that's on your mind. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
So the first person we have is Dennis Sandow. Oh, Nancy, when I got kicked off, I lost hosting rights. So if you could either make me a co-host or.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good. I'm sorry, I am traveling. I'm a couple hundred miles away. This is perhaps my last opportunity to participate while traveling. Otherwise, I'll have to be in town hall. I tuned in just in time to catch the discussion about oversized swimming pools. And I'd just like to remind you that there is a gimmick that we put into the ordinances about 3 years ago having to do with temporary trailers. And that is, the way that is written is that the township committee can direct its employee, the zoning official, to issue a zoning permit. And that starts the ball rolling for construction and everything else. You simply direct him to issue the permit. You don't have to dabble in the niceties of the zoning ordinance itself. You don't have to make commitments for any other applicant. You can put any conditions on that you want. For example, for this one summer only. That's an alternative that's available to you, I think.
I don't know, Jack can talk about that, Dennis, but the permit was already issued, the zoning permit. So this was more about the engineering and the drywall. So I don't know if that applies, but.
Well, it would apply to the extent that it's oversized and needs a variance, as Jack pointed out. And in fact, the zoning official cannot issue a zoning permit until after the variance has been granted. So he has acted out of turn.
No, that's not, no, the way that I understand that how it went is zoning looked at it, gave the permit, said you need to meet these engineering criteria. It went over to engineering. The resident did not want to meet the engineering criteria of the dry well. So that's where we are.
All right, we've got to go back and revisit the sequence that leads up to the zoning permit. The way we wrote it back 3 years ago was that the zoning permit is issued after the zoning ordinance requirements have been met, either by right or by variance. And if the zoning ordinance says 400 square feet, and then he has to apply for a variance before the zoning permit can be issued.
Even if they're willing to put in the drywall? If they were willing to put in the drywall, this never would have got to, well, we wouldn't be where we are today. You see what I'm saying? So
remember, with earlier this year, in January or February, we upgraded the wetlands at Paul's request and put into effect new tighter requirements that the state mandated. That was about in February. We went through the process of upgrading that ordinance. So if there is a dry well issue, there's a brand new ordinance that affects it.
Jack, you're on mute if you're.
I was agreeing with Dennis.
Well, I mean, I assume Paul looked at that, you know, I'll talk to him again, on Monday, next week.
No, you can't talk to him on Monday. He'll be at the parade.
I changed it to next week.
Dennis, are you guaranteeing?
Well, okay, that was my contribution. Thank you.
Dennis, are you guaranteeing good weather on Monday?
Say again?
Are you guaranteeing sunshine on Monday?
I will be home on Sunday and I will be at the parade. Although I am not neither a wounded nor a deceased veteran, I'd still like to be honored because I came back alive.
But I do want you to guarantee good weather, though.
No, I only guarantee good weather for my events. And as you saw from my email a day or two ago, we're scheduled now for the Sunday of Labor Day. And by actual count, that is the sixth date that we have set for the 20th annual street fair. And and all 5 of the prior dates were good weather. And so I've got a lot of credit in the bank, regardless of the weather on September 5th.
That's probably a fair point. Hey, Dennis, thank you. All right. Any other member of the public?
It looks like Pam Ogens. I'm gonna allow you to speak. If you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Ogens, 36 The Crescent, Millington. The vulnerable resident advocate job description, how can that be viewed by residents? Where will that be viewed? Will you put it on the website? If so, where will you put it on the website? And secondly, as is customary, will you give preference to an employee whose position has been eliminated, i.e. the OEM coordinator?
Jack, is there any reason why we couldn't post the job description? I don't want to post it as a job offer because I think everyone would understand why. But
you don't have to because it's a work in progress, but you certainly can. Just make sure it's clearly marked as draft.
And maybe we could even add the public and the volunteers on this thing could certainly and will certainly add to that list. You know, what, you know, other than Brendan, I think Brendan's the only one on here that has emergency management, I don't know what to call it, emergency services experience. And I think common sense, we can come up with some things. Like Matt had spoken about the Latino community here in town. But to what was said earlier, I expect that list to grow. You know, this was just a work in progress, as you pointed out, Jack. So if you don't see any reason not to post it with the caveat that this is a draft, I think maybe that's great because now we will have public input onto what that role should look like. Okay.
So that was the first of my 2 requests, was that it be posted where it's accessible, and when you decide where, so it's a little easier to find on the website. And secondly, will you commit to giving preference to an employee of the township whose position will be eliminated by the creation of this new position, which is customary?
Jack, I think I could take that one and you stop me. We can't commit to that, but I think based on the dialogue tonight, I think it's pretty clear what the committee believes.
That's the exact right answer.
I didn't go to law school, Jack, but I did sleep in a Holiday Inn Express last night. So, all right.
And thank you, Mayor, for standing up for what you feel is right.
And I want to be clear, I don't disagree with the other members of the committee. I think this role is important and we want to fill it. Guy Roshto, can we accept him?
I think Megan's frozen. so-
Yes.
You got it? I got it.
Nancy, I think my internet is.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so Guy, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Sorry.
We can. The floor is yours, buddy.
Hey, I apologize. My power went out and I dropped and came back in. So if this question's been asked, just let me know. Will there be this new position that's being established? Will there be that position on the agenda on the?
Guy, you broke up. You still there?
I am here. You want me to repeat my question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
On June 9th, will
Yes.
this new position that was discussed tonight be on the agenda as a resolution or an ordinance?
I don't know how, what's the order that it should be? Two different conversations or resolutions or?
Well, one thing, we'd have to amend the salary ordinance to create the position and establish the salary range.
Okay.
So we should do that.
And so Guy, if I understand correctly, you want to ensure, but that this position is created in the event that an appointment is not made or whatever with the OEM position.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, Guy, Mayor, and I'm going to say most of the people on the call tonight applaud the work that's been done on this new position. I, for one, support a position like that, helping seniors, people in need in our town makes absolute sense. Reducing the number of hours on OEM makes absolute sense. I think what was missed tonight was the process on how you're doing that. You're essentially laying off an employee for a period of time and then promising to rehire her when you establish a role. So what I'm asking is, on June 9th, will you have in a solid piece of paper or as resolution or as a ordinance that you're going to approve and say, we have this new role and now we can offer Shane or whomever you're going to offer it to? Or are we going to be in the same position as tonight? Are you going to have the same exact discussion that happened tonight?
I think if Shane is appointed to the position, she could continue under the current salary ordinance, and we would just amend it to reflect the change.
That the role would be different than current.
Right. But I think under these circumstances, and then we could, add to the salary ordinance.
Okay. Guy, does that answer your question?
My question is, on June 9th, will there be a position established that can then be filled by Shane? Are you going to do these things simultaneously, or are you going to do what was happened tonight, where you don't have a position, a new role that was so eloquently described by Scott and others that doesn't exist today? Will you actually establish the ordinance, resolution, or both that you need on June 9th, or are we going to go through the same exercise we went through tonight?
I think you could appoint someone to a position with a preliminary job description, and I think that job description can be refined and changed as they often are as time goes by.
But you would need a resolution, Jack?
Well, a resolution of appointment. And in the appointment, I would refer to the draft job description, say it's subject to change. But, I think you have a pretty good idea of the concept of the position.
Does anybody on the committee have an issue with putting a resolution on the June 9th agenda, establishing this position as we have given?
I don't think we need to establish it by resolution. I think you could actually appoint somebody to the position. It's not a new office. It's another job. Assistant to the administrator kind of job. I don't think we need an ordinance establishing that position.
Okay. God, it's probably not as specific as you want, but I think based on what you've heard from the 5 members of the committee.
I think all 5 of you would agree to an appointment on June 9th. That's what I thought I was hearing Matt and Scott and Dick and Brendan saying. So I think the public will respond very favorably to that. I think that what was missed here was that the focus should have been on Shane, not on this new position, because the new position doesn't exist. So establish it on June 9th, and I think it's going to go through quickly.
I'm sorry, can I just add a point of whatever? Jack, are you saying we don't have to do a salary ordinance? It's a brand new position. Every time we create a brand new position, we have to do a salary ordinance. How are we
Yeah, but
gonna?
I think in the case of an existing employee whose duties are changing, I think we could do the salary ordinance contemporaneously, introduce it that night and she could continue. I think technically that's probably not correct, but I think under these circumstances, you're not hiring a new employee. She's getting paid under the current salary ordinance, and you're amending it to reflect a new position, her new position. If in fact that happens. I don't think she has to be laid off for 2 weeks while an ordinance is adopted. Is my point.
Basically what we came to the table here tonight thinking we were doing, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And obviously Shane's got to agree to this, right?
Yes, that's right. That's what I'm saying. There's a meeting of the minds.
Right.
If you want, I think we could probably introduce an ordinance entitled tonight, amending the salary ordinance to create the position of whatever title you want to give it at a salary of whatever salary you want to establish. You don't have to fill it, but that would allow you then, if in fact there's a meeting of the minds, you could adopt it, at the next meeting.
So we're introducing the salary ordinance to amend it to reflect this new.
Well, I'm saying we can, because under the statute, you can introduce ordinances by title only. And especially this kind of ordinance where the title would describe exactly what the ordinance is doing.
We went from we took no action, and now we're taking lots of action, which is basically doing what we decided we wanted to do at the beginning. And guys, you as the mayor said, no, we're not doing anything because we've all these people to talk to. And now we've
Brendan,
got.
I didn't mean to create more passion here.
Oh no, guy.
I'm just asking a simple question. I want to kind of table this really. I'm just asking a simple question. On June 9th, can you put the resolution on tonight? It's not on the agenda. That's the confusion.
Right.
And you know what? I think I'm going to revert back to what that wonderful mayor said a little bit earlier ago. Let's all take a breath. And Guy, by the way, I don't necessarily disagree, and I think it will evolve kind of the way we're discussing, but Brendan's right. We didn't take any action tonight. Let's take no action tonight.
There could not be a resolution appointing someone to the position tonight because there was not a meeting of minds as to accepting that appointment.
Right.
And look, yeah. I am so thankful for the passion that was expressed tonight by everybody. But
I'm gonna, because it's getting late, Guy. I'm gonna respectfully interrupt the mayor. Scares me, but really, can someone answer the question I'm asking? On June 9th, will there be something to us? What Jack just said, appoint Shane to that position.
No, I think the right question is, will there be any action to create a position? That's the question.
I heard Jack say the opposite of that.
Well, what I'm saying is there can't be a resolution on there unless there's a discussion. The position's offered to Shane because her name's being bandied about, and she accepts. There's no point in having a resolution on the agenda appointing somebody if they're not going to accept a position.
Right. That's the meeting of the minds part. Absolutely.
Right.
But is there going to be on June 9th something that addresses this question?
Jack, why is this not just a change in title and a change in responsibilities?
That's why I suggested we could live with the current salary ordinance because it's an unusual situation.
Right.
But yeah, but you have to.
Your question, right?
But if you're creating a new position and you're going to appoint a new person as emergency management coordinator, then I think there should be a resolution appointing that person to the new position.
Right. And will you all commit to doing that on June 9th?
We don't know what's going to happen between now and then. I don't vote, but.
I didn't mean you, Jack.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying, that's a hard question for the township committee to answer. It depends on what happens between now and then in discussions with the interested parties.
All right.
We would like to, speaking for me.
Yeah, that's a reasonable answer.
And speaking for me, I would like you to. So, all right, I took enough of your time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who stuck in here. I don't know if everybody's name is still there, is actually still on the call. But
still awake.
Look, I think this has been a long meeting for everybody. I think all of our hearts are in the right place. So with that said, I'd look, well, anybody else, any other hands? Last call for alcohol?
Click the lights on and off.
Remember to tip your mayor. Jack, that's something I should say, right? Remember to tip your mayor. No, probably not.
That's
All right.
not.
So I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Aye.
And thank you to the public.
Good night, man. Good night, everybody.
Good night.